The year was 2025, and the game called Shen had been announced. A game so revolutionary that its power could be brought to reality, which naturally ended up causing a series of catastrophic events and countless disasters that transformed the world. And it was in this scenario that Qin Feng, who was about to reach the peak of his power, ended up being betrayed by the very person he trusted the most, something he never imagined could happen. Although he had fallen, the divine equipment he had received gave him a unique chance to start again. And this time he vowed that he would choose a completely different path, deciding to awaken in the middle of the darkness, to strengthen himself alone without relying on anyone, moving silently through the shadows, becoming the very shadow that no one could stop. In front of him, everything was destroyed. The scene was a real battlefield ravaged by a violent storm, where a woman was watching and commenting that Qin Feng was really powerful, because even though he had suffered the effect of accelerated aging by 100 times, he had still managed to completely clean up the ruins of the ancient god. But his real goal was to take possession of the legendary artifact known as the Eye of Judgment. Qin Feng, even badly injured, asked the reason for that betrayal, and with deep sorrow realized that the person standing in front of him was his own adopted sister, Qin Xiaoyu, who coldly replied that he had never been her real brother, as he was just an insignificant child her parents had adopted, and that they didn't even share the same blood, questioning how he still dared to call her his sister. While Qin Feng was still trying to understand the betrayal, Song Fei, Qin Xiaoyu's ally, approached and added that this was not the way to treat someone who had helped so much, but he still made it clear that the whole situation had been extremely useful, because without Qin Feng, they would never have gotten the divine artifact, revealing that they had gone to great lengths to get the soul-stealing blade, a weapon that was now stuck in Qin Feng's chest to drain all his life. Song Fei then asked ironically if Qin Feng had liked the farewell gift, while Qin Feng, even though he was dying, remembered that it was he who had raised Qin Xiaoyu after the death of her adoptive parents, who had dedicated everything to protecting her after the game brought chaos to the real world, risking his life countless times for her and sacrificing everything he had. Even so, Qin Xiaoyu didn't hesitate to despise him, saying that after the death of their parents, he had interfered too much in their lives, always trying to control them, and that now that they had the divine artifact, Qin Feng had become useless to them, a burden they needed to get rid of without hesitation. In this way, Song Fei prepared to kill him once and for all, guaranteeing that she would take good care of Qin Xiaoyu. But Qin Feng, even on the brink of death, swore that even if he went to hell, he wouldn't let them get away with it. Yet with one final blow, Qin Feng was beheaded without mercy. It was then revealed that in 2025, the Shen game had been abandoned and dropped into the real world, forcing anyone who fell asleep to be dragged into the game, where the only currency was lifetime, and when you died in the game, you lost part of your real life. Those who accumulated large amounts of time could bring their skills to the real world, becoming capable of destroying war tanks with their bare hands, cutting airplanes in half with their swords, and even resisting nuclear explosions. From that moment on, the world was plunged into unprecedented chaos, and Qin Feng, together with his sister, fought with all his might to survive, facing countless dangers and difficulties, managing with great effort to become one of the 100 strongest in the world. And after going through countless trials and defying death several times, he finally conquered the ruins of the ancient god and obtained the divine eyes, the artifact that would give him the qualification he needed to reach the absolute top. But it was at this moment of victory that he suffered the cruel betrayal of his own adoptive sister, something he could never have imagined, but which he refused to accept as his final fate. Qin Feng thought that if he had the chance to live again, he would follow a completely different path, fighting alone without ever trusting anyone. And then, unexpectedly, he opened his eyes and found himself lying in his own bed, not understanding where he was, wondering if this was really the real world, until he realized that he clearly remembered having died both in the game and in real life. And it was only at that moment that he understood the truth, because he was once again in the year 2025. He had returned to the past, before the game Shen descended to Earth, thus receiving a new opportunity to rewrite his destiny. The next moment, Qin Xiaoyu was already breaking down the door of the house with force, demanding to know why Qin Feng hadn't answered her calls, while Qin Feng, upon hearing her voice, quickly remembered that that was exactly the day the Shen game would arrive in the real world, and also recalled that that same day they had argued violently over that Song Fei guy, which only made matters worse. Qin Xiaoyu kept shouting, saying that she only wanted to help her brother Song Fei and asking if Qin Feng didn't understand how important this was to her. But Qin Feng silently reflected that before the game started, Song Fei was nothing more than a fifth-rate underground idol, and that Qin Xiaoyu was absurdly obsessed with him, unable to see that, despite his glamorous appearance, Song Fei was actually a scoundrel who deceived innocent fans in order to get money out of them. For this reason, Qin Feng had always forbidden his sister to go near that guy, trying to protect her in any way he could. But in the end, he was unjustly accused of wanting to control her life. While now, in the present, Qin Xiaoyu wouldn't stop hurling insults and shouts at him, asking him in an aggressive tone if he was deaf and if he thought it was normal to ignore her like that. She still accused him of being to blame for Song Fei's fall in the rankings that month, causing Qin Feng, already completely out of patience, to raise his hand and slap her straight across the face, which left Qin Xiaoyu incredulous, asking if he had really dared to assault her. But Qin Feng, completely annoyed, coldly replied that he had neither the humor nor the time to put up with this shit, and even threatened that if she continued barking like a dog, she would be slapped again without hesitation. Qin Feng then took out a bank card and threw it at her head, explaining that this was the money his parents had left him before they died, money he had never touched or used for himself, and now she could spend it as she pleased, making it clear that, for the sake of their parents, he wouldn't stoop to her level, but that if she insisted on this behavior, she wouldn't even be considered his sister anymore. Naturally, Qin Xiaoyu began to cry copiously after that, while Qin Feng, looking at her, thought that in his past life he had always protected Qin Xiaoyu in every possible situation, sacrificing countless opportunities and losing valuable treasures, dangerous dungeons, and unique chances just to save or help her. But now, with a new life before him, Qin Feng wondered how far he could get without carrying that burden on his back. Without any more hesitation, Qin Feng took sleeping pills, determined to use all the knowledge he had acquired about the game to get ahead of everyone this time, and with cold determination thought that Qin Xiaoyu would no longer be in his way, and that Song Fei would have his fate sealed, as he would mercilessly rip his head off himself. Soon afterwards, Qin Feng fell asleep and entered the world of the game, appearing in the huge career selection hall, where he clearly remembered that, in his first life, he had felt nervous and insecure when faced with choices. But now, with his past experience, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. In his previous life, he had chosen the warrior class, a decision made only to protect Qin Xiaoyu, recognizing that although warriors were strong, that class never really suited him. But now, free of any weight or responsibility, Qin Feng knew that he needed mobility, agility, and quick reactions, and so he chose the assassin class without hesitation. At the same moment, the system detected the presence of the Eye of Judgment in his inventory and announced that the artifact had been activated automatically, granting him the highest rank and talent possible, which left Qin Feng relieved, as it proved that the Eye of Judgment really did recognize its true master, even after death and rebirth, completely ignoring the fact that it had been stolen in the past life. However, before he could act, mysterious shadows hit his chest and crossed his entire body, causing the system to congratulate him on achieving a hidden profession, a secret specialization that few had access to, transforming Qin Feng completely and giving him an even more terrifying power. Now, Qin Feng had become the Shadows, the most powerful secret profession in the entire tree of assassins, something that was completely different from his old life as a warrior. And just by assuming this shadowy form, he already felt an absurd power flowing through his body, a power that this time he would use exclusively to walk his own path without mercy and without regrets. Qin Feng thought that, in theory, any player who entered the game would have a small chance of getting a hidden profession, but thanks to the authority of judgment he possessed, he had received this opportunity for free, without having to rely on luck like the others, and the Eye of Judgment had not yet shown all its true power, because as the protagonist of that new future, Qin Feng knew that he would receive even greater benefits over time. The authority of judgment was considered the most genuine and ancient of all the primal authorities in the universe, a power that surpassed the rules of the game and even the cosmic order itself, something so great that he could not yet fully activate it, since he did not yet possess his divinity. But even so, the passive effects of this authority already worked at decisive moments without him having to make a conscious effort. Qin Feng reflected that, in his past life, it was only in the 7th year after the God-forsaken game began that a player finally managed to leave the God-forsaken realm and reach the far-flung realm of order. And it was only then that humanity discovered the existence of the power of order, an extremely rare power that, even then, so it was unbelievable that, this time, right at the start of his journey, he had already obtained an authority that surpassed this power. And while thinking about this, Qin Feng determined that his new goal was to leave the Forsaken Realm, reach the Realm of Order, and obtain his divinity in order to finally activate the full potential of the authority of judgment. While he was thinking about all this, the system asked him to complete his choice of starting point, and Qin Feng, aware of his new path, decided that he would begin in the shadows, befitting his new profession as an assassin, and was thus transported to a starting area within the abandoned realm of the gods, a devastated land full of countless monsters, where the initial task was to leave the safe city, hunt monsters, and accumulate lifespans, knowing that within the city players could not attack each other, as it was considered a safe zone. While observing the surroundings, Qin Feng realized that the other players were as confused as he had been in his first life, muttering among themselves. themselves, asking what this place was and trying to understand what to do, because it was clear that many players had already entered the game and that powerful figures from all over the world would soon appear, each trying to survive in their own way. Feng himself caught the attention of several players right from the start, as he didn't seem to be just an ordinary assassin. His posture and presence were different, and as more people appeared in the teleport portal, it was possible to hear complaints that the monsters outside were extremely strong for someone of level 1, with players reporting that they had lost half their actual life expectancy just trying to fight. Many players, desperate, asked a girl called Lizzie what they should do, and Qinfeng noticed that she carried a short bow as her starting weapon, a sign that she also possessed a hidden class. And it wasn't long before Lizzie approached Feng, commenting that he also seemed to have a special profession, and sensing the danger outside, offered him the opportunity to join her group, claiming that together they might have a better chance of survival, since they had experience. Qinfeng refused without hesitation, stating that there was no need, as in his mind he despised the supposed experience of that group, since the only thing they seemed to have was experience of being defeated, something he knew all too well, and immediately Lizzie's group became angry, accusing him of arrogance and predicting that he would soon return to the city auctioning off his equipment after being killed by some monster. Among the group, eyes wondered aloud what exactly the shadow profession was and insinuated that Qinfeng was just playing macho, but then suggested that everyone follow Feng from afar, as they could learn useful information about the monsters, or at the very least, watch him die a humiliating death. While Qinfeng advanced alone into the dangerous areas, Lizzie and her group discreetly pursued him, worried that that direction was extremely risky, since, with years of gaming experience, Lizzie knew that entering unknown terrain alone was the quickest way to death, especially considering that the first monster in that village had massacred her entire group minutes ago. One of the people in the group commented that Qinfeng was carrying a dagger, similar to a small sword, and the group's assassin observed that he must therefore be quite fast, noting also that Feng's clothing was different from what everyone else was wearing, further reinforcing the impression that he possessed an extremely rare class. Lizzie thought that this shadow profession must be extremely special, and even without understanding all the details, she knew that players as confident as Qinfeng didn't appear for nothing. But while she was still pondering, Qinfeng, who seemed oblivious to everything, suddenly looked back with a penetrating gaze, making Lizzie wonder, startled, if they had been noticed. Before they could make any move, Qinfeng activated Dark Stealth and, in front of everyone's wide eyes, simply disappeared as if he had dissolved into thin air, leaving behind only the silence and confusion of those watching him. For this was no ordinary assassin skill, it was something far beyond what anyone there had ever witnessed, and everyone was struck by the fact that, in the blink of an eye, Qinfeng had become unreachable. While some were still commenting on whether it was really possible that Qinfeng had turned invisible, Lisa suggested that the group head back to the city, remembering that they had already died in that area before, and couldn't afford to lose even more life so early in the game, especially in such a hostile and unfamiliar environment. It was explained that the stealth ability of the Shadow class allowed the user to become completely invisible for a certain period of time, but that attacking canceled the effect immediately, although the first blow delivered immediately after coming out of stealth dealt extraordinarily more damage than normal, working in a similar way to classic stealth techniques such as that of the Chaco character in other well-known games. As he walked along hidden, Qinfeng wondered if no one was really able to see him, confirming that, as expected, the Shadow class was extraordinary, for while the stealth of an ordinary entry-level assassin could easily be detected by other players or attentive monsters, the Shadow profession possessed a unique passive ability called Mastery of Stealth, which made its presence absolutely undetectable to both players and monsters at the start of the game, giving it an absolute advantage at this early stage. Qinfeng thought that that group of players was too naive and foolish, because the initial city didn't offer any kind of significant resource to strengthen a player. It was just a temporary shelter in this cruel, godforsaken game, where weak players were nothing more than prey for the monsters that prowled the outside areas, ready to devour them mercilessly. As time passed, Qinfeng felt that his stealth was running out, because at that level the duration of the skill was still short, although fortunately the recharge time to be able to reuse it was quite low, allowing him to use the technique quite often in quick combats. When he opened his character sheet, Qinfeng saw that he was a level 1 player of the Shadow class, with 75 years of available lifetime, and that his initial attributes were as follows: Strength 10 plus 3 additional points, Constitution 10 plus 3 additional points, Agility 10 plus 8 additional points, and Spirit 10 plus 5 additional points. Qinfeng mentally commented that all classes started with 10 points in each base attribute, but that depending on the class chosen, they received specific bonuses. And he remembered that in his past life, when he chose to be a warrior, his bonuses were 3 points in Strength and 3 points in Constitution, whereas now, With the Shadow class, the bonuses were much more interesting and balanced, and he still had 5 free points to distribute. While many players used to put all their available points into strength or magical power, Qinfeng, with his past life experience, allocated all 5 extra points to agility, bringing his total to an impressive 23 agility points. Because he knew that at the beginning of the game, where the monsters dealt absurd damage, the most important thing was not to resist, but to avoid being hit, relying on speed to survive. While he was pondering his choices, a monster appeared, revealing itself to be a level 1 crawler, a creature in the process of evolving, and Qinfeng quickly realized that the crawler was still sucking life from dead players, probably the members of the group following it. Looking closely, Qinfeng saw that the monster was already visibly wounded, and knew that when a monster killed players, it absorbed their lifespan, and if it accumulated enough, it could evolve into even more dangerous forms, making the situation critical. When the creeper swooped in to attack him, Qinfeng reacted immediately by activating his dark stealth, completely confusing the two-headed monster, who became disoriented and untargeted, opening up a perfect gap for Qinfeng to execute a sneak attack. Taking advantage, Qinfeng landed a precise and lethal blow on the crawler's neck, causing 174 points of critical damage, eliminating the level 1 monster in a single attack and gaining 10 experience points for it. While the system explained that when attacking out of the enemy's sight, the damage was multiplied considerably, Qinfeng was surprised by the strength of the attack, because even though he knew that his class was powerful, he hadn't expected that a critical hit at that level could result in a real hit kill, showing that, with all the skills combined, the damage multiplier of the Shadow class was absurdly high and devastating. He also remembered the first time he had faced that creature in his past life, when he was still protecting his sister, and that at that time, the most critical damage he had managed to deal was only 40 points, requiring a huge and prolonged effort to defeat a single monster, which was in stark contrast to his new reality now. After the battle, Qinfeng observed the process of absorbing lifetime for the first time, realizing that, in addition to the 3 days of life he had gained from killing the monster, he had also absorbed the remaining time of the players killed previously, adding up to a total of 54 more years of lifetime, although he knew that this absorbed time, although valuable, could not be transferred or exchanged, somewhat limiting its immediate usefulness. At that moment, the authority of the Eye of Judgment spontaneously activated, and as a reward, Qinfeng obtained a new special talent called Infinite Evolution, further expanding his future possibilities and reinforcing his certainty that, this time, no one would be able to stop him on his climb to the top. The primal talent that Qinfeng had just obtained, called Infinite Evolution, granted him the ability, by killing monsters alone, to gain evolution points that could be used to increase his abilities, with each 24-hour cycle being able to accumulate up to 5 evolution points, and that by defeating bosses without help, he could obtain extra points, something that was simply impossible for a normal player at the initial stage. By now, Qinfeng had accumulated 5 points, and he was naturally deeply shocked, because in his past life he had never even heard of this skill, remembering only that, in order to obtain new skills, he depended solely on the luck of finding very rare books that fell at random from monsters. Marveling at the power he had gained, Qinfeng recognized that this talent was far above the order of the world itself, and, without hesitation, decided to use his points immediately to strengthen his combat style, choosing to evolve his Sneaky Strike, the skill used to attack immediately after coming out of stealth. Spending 4 evolution points, Qinfeng improved his skill, causing the duration of invisibility to increase from 12 to 16 seconds, the damage bonus of the attack coming out of stealth to rise from 60 to 90%, the recharge time of the skill to be reduced from 28 to 26 seconds, and attacks carried out from behind or out of sight of the enemy to cause 15% more damage, creating an almost perfect synergy with his stealth combat strategy. Qinfeng mentally commented that with these improvements, he would be able to maintain invisibility practically continuously, which would allow him to eliminate entry-level monsters with a single critical hit, even if they were full of life, something that not even in his most optimistic dreams would he have believed in his past life. As he finished adjusting his skills, a few people appeared in the area, commenting to each other that the game seemed very easy, as there was even a lone player killing monsters like it was nothing. And among them, a little girl enthusiastically stated that, with muscles as big as those of the knight accompanying her, it would be possible to do the same, to which the knight smilingly replied that he would protect the girl at all costs. However, while everyone was distracted, Qinfeng noticed a dangerous presence above them, noting that there was a creature hiding in a tree. And although the rider approached and asked in a debauched tone if Qinfeng was having difficulties and wanted to be carried by him, Qinfeng simply disappeared back into the shadows without paying any attention to the provocation, making the group believe that he had been intimidated by the rider's muscles. However, soon afterwards, reality set in brutally, as both the knight and the little girl were killed instantly, revealing the real threat, a level 1, bronze-class nourishing spider, which had appeared along with several smaller spiders under its command. But Qin Feng knew that this boss was not something a novice could face, as the nourishing spider had at least 1,600 life points and was still leading a small horde of offspring. But he also recognized that it was the perfect opportunity to test how strong he had become after the evolution of his abilities. Without hesitating, Qin Feng came out of stealth and attacked directly, driving his dagger into the nourishing spider's eye with all his might, causing a massive 338 points of critical damage in a single blow, making the creature scream in pain as it gushed blood. But despite the success of the attack, Qin Feng also received 9 points of damage when he was hit with a glancing blow, which served as a warning that if he was hit full on, he would die on the spot. Even so, the feat of causing more than 300 points of damage in a single blow against a boss of that size was impressive, and Qin Feng knew that he had completely surpassed his previous limitations, because in his past life, to defeat such a monster, his greatest critical blow had only been 40 points, which had made the battle extremely long and risky. Now, the enraged nourishing spider began to destroy all the trees around it, trying to find the attacker who had seriously injured it. And Qin Feng knew that, unlike ordinary monsters, intelligent bosses didn't stand around taking blows without reacting, so he had to act even more cautiously. Determined, Qin Feng used his stealth and, instead of attacking directly, threw a stone at the weak point in the nourishing spider's belly, causing 299 points of damage. Realizing that, thanks to his skills, the damage was applied not only to weapon attacks, but to any object he used to hit the enemy, which opened up new combat possibilities. Understanding that he could exploit this advantage, Qin Feng decided to wait for the stealth to recharge while continuing to attack with stones thrown at weak points, repeating the process with precision until the nourishing spider's life was completely depleted, with one more stone to the head, causing 279 points of damage and speeding up the end of the battle. Meanwhile, in the main city where all the players were gathered, a ranking system had been activated, and immediately the name Shadow appeared in first place after the death of the bronze-ranked nourishing spider, being also the first player to reach level 2, which left everyone present completely shocked, wondering if he was some professional undercover player. Lizzie's group, who had followed Qin Feng earlier, were terrified to realize that the guy they had despised was actually a real monstrosity capable of single-handedly killing a boss they would never have a chance against, showing everyone that Qin Feng, now known as Shadow, had started his journey to the top in an overwhelming way. The warrior from before, still surprised, asked if Qin Feng had really managed to kill the nourishing spider, along with all the little spiders that accompanied it, while the little girl next to him wondered if he was the same killer they had seen before. And while they were talking, Qin Feng, now called Shadow in the game world, was receiving 300 experience points, reaching level 2 and also gaining 2 evolution points and 1 reputation point, which marked his steady progress in the new world. Although he was pleased with his progress, Qin Feng reflected that, unfortunately, when he killed the main spider, all the smaller spiders died together, which prevented him from gaining even more experience, because if he had eliminated the smaller ones first, he would have accumulated many more points efficiently, a mistake he made a mental note of so as not to repeat in the future. In addition, he received 46 days of exchangeable lifespan, a skill book called Greedy Hand, and a new weapon, a corrosive dagger that granted 35 attack and 4 additional points of agility, items that left him extremely satisfied, especially intrigued by the newly acquired skill, because Greedy Hand gave him a 20% chance of obtaining additional rewards when killing monsters, which meant an increasingly rapid growth in power. Qin Feng reflected that he would never have expected such a powerful skill to be in the hands of a creature of that level, and that, thinking in the long term, this skill would be extremely valuable for the late game, because the more powerful the monster defeated, the greater the extra rewards it could earn, becoming a growth multiplier far above average. Even knowing that the activation rate was still only 20%, Qin Feng was beginning to plan to use his evolution points to improve this skill, because if he managed to raise the chance to 100%, he could guarantee twice as many rewards in every battle, something simply insane in terms of progression. Meanwhile, in the real world, at the school where Qin Xiaoyu was studying, her friend was asking if she was going to call her brother and apologize, remembering that they had both missed the test the day before, precisely to help Song Fei, which could have really annoyed Qin Feng. Her friend commented that her brother was probably very angry, but Xiao, without any remorse, replied that she hadn't done anything wrong and therefore shouldn't apologize, blaming her own brother for being late, clearly showing her lack of regret and her distorted view of events. Her friend tried to smooth over the situation, saying that at least her brother seemed to care a lot about her, something that, deep down, even caused a certain envy, but Xiao, with a cold expression, replied that this wasn't caring, It was just an attempt to control her life, reaffirming that he wasn't even her real brother, and that, for her, Song Fei was already more than enough to fill that role. Curious, her friend asked what had happened to Xiao's face, and she, lying without hesitation, said that she had tripped and fallen as they approached the classroom, quickly diverting the subject, because in the corridor, a crowd of students was gathered around an unexpected scene. In front of them, a student called Zhang Wei was gradually becoming transparent, as if he were disappearing from the real world, and the frightened students commented that he had only mentioned that he was going to take a nap before entering this strange state, and then added that several similar cases were being reported on the internet, where people who fell asleep ended up slowly disappearing. Xiao's friend, worried, said she would call her parents for help, but Xiao, hardened in her stubbornness, replied that she wouldn't call her brother at all, letting slip in a moment of anger that she would rather he died right away, showing how her feelings were poisoned by Song Fei's influence. Meanwhile, inside the game, Qin Feng, now as Shadow, used his newly won evolution points to increase the level of the Greedy Hand skill, raising it from bronze rank to gold rank, which increased the chance of obtaining additional rewards from 20 to 70%. A gigantic improvement that made all the difference on the battlefield. What's more, by completing the evolution, Qin Feng gained 2 additional evolution points and 46 days of exchangeable lifetime, which he considered a great profit, and he soon realized that he still only needed 3 evolution points to raise the skill to the next level, which would guarantee a 100% chance of doubling the rewards after defeating monsters. With this goal in mind, Qin Feng knew that he needed to speed up the pace of his growth even more, because in the real world, people were already starting to notice the changes that the game was causing, and it was only a matter of time before chaos took over. Equipping the new corrosive dagger, Qin Feng mentally commented that soon everyone would realize that it was possible to use skills and items from the game in real life, which would turn society into a real hell. And in order to extract the skills and equipment from the game, 2 conditions had to be met: reaching level 10 and having enough exchangeable life, which would require him to hunt much more powerful monsters, as defeating weak creatures would not be enough. While advancing in his plans, Qin Feng heard sounds of battle nearby, where a group of players were facing a level 2 bronze-class swift predator, and upon observing closely, he realized that the rumors of his past life were correct. For Meng, a player who would emerge as a legend, had joined a team composed only of people with hidden classes. Meng used a skill called Divine Barrier to protect himself from the predator's attacks, and Qin Feng noticed that his class was Divine Shield Knight, which granted twice the status of a normal warrior, as well as defensive skills that made him almost invincible at the start of the game, while a mage with the special class of Prophet cast powerful fireballs as her build doubled the power of normal spells, further increasing their destructive potential. Completing the group were an archer of the Sharpshooter class and a priest of the Oracle Priest class, forming a balanced and extremely strong team for the initial stage. But despite all this power, the swift predator continued to quickly dodge all attacks, even managing to break through Meng's divine barrier and causing the archer to comment worriedly that his attacks seemed useless against this creature. Meng, seeing the critical situation, asked only to be healed as long as he was alive on the front line, believing that if his companions managed to keep him on his feet, they could defeat the predator. And although Qin Feng thought Meng was being extremely optimistic, he also knew that many people forgot the real danger of that forest, where, while they were focusing on the main combat, monsters like the Corruptors, common level 2s, were beginning to approach from behind. In the middle of the confusion, the last person in the group appeared to help, someone who used a hidden class that Qin Feng had never seen before. But despite his efforts, his attack only caused 33 points of damage, because the Corruptors' defense was too high. And the situation quickly became complicated when the Corruptors began to spit a disgusting sludge that stuck to the knight's armor and also to the mage, causing her to scream in despair as she tried to flee. Suddenly, without anyone realizing where the attack was coming from, a sharp blow decapitated one of the Corruptors, something so fast and precise that it surprised everyone. And the knight, startled, commented that even an ordinary crawler would need about 10 seconds to kill that creature, but there's someone had done it in a single invisible blow. Soon afterwards, the second Corruptor also lost his mind, and the knight asked, confused, if it had been the sorceress who had been responsible. But Lizzie, surprised, replied that it obviously hadn't been her, while Wang Meng, trying to remain calm, said that thinking on the positive side, at least whoever it was helping the group. With only the swift predator left in the way, Qin Feng took advantage and received 40 experience points for the defeated Corruptors, also gaining another evolution point, a skill book called Poison Darts, and 8 additional days of exchangeable life expectancy, thinking that this new skill would be perfect for his combat style and deciding to evolve it right then and there without wasting any time. However, at this critical moment, Wang Meng was brutally hit by the predator, being completely pierced by its claws, and despite the priest's attempts to heal him, his spells didn't work, leaving Meng in a desperate situation as he shouted for his allies to flee immediately. It was then that something hit the predator's head, causing an impressive 845 points of damage, which left everyone present in shock, as a single attack had taken more than half of the creature's life, and with the poison acting inside the monster's body, the predator dropped Wang Meng, who screamed in pain, before finally succumbing and dying. As Qin Feng had caused 90% of all the damage against the predator, the system awarded him the lion's share of the reward, earning him 600 experience points, rising to level 3, gaining 2 additional evolution points, and an extra 55 days of exchangeable life expectancy, as well as further strengthening his presence in the game. Qin Feng reflected that the poison dart's skill perfectly matched his stealth and high critical damage combat style, and he knew that, with his hidden abilities, he could take down opponents without even being detected. Wang Meng, stunned, wondered aloud who had done it, wondering if it was really a human, while he looked around, trying to find his invisible savior. And Qin Feng, without revealing himself, only warned in thought that trusting strangers in the forest was a fatal mistake. Wang Meng, grateful for the warning and the help, decided to leave with his group, while Qin Feng thought that Meng was a decent player, someone with solid support from the government, which could be useful later to sell the equipment that wasn't necessary for his progression. Seizing the moment, Qin Feng activated the Greedy Hand skill and obtained 3 more evolution points, 55 additional days of life expectancy, and a valuable item. The leather boots of the Swift Predator, which increased all elemental resistances by 5 points, added 9 physical damage, and increased the speed of skill recovery by 15%, and could be equipped from level 2. Mentally commenting that those boots were good, but that there were even better items to look for, Qin Feng decided that as soon as his backpack was full, he would go back to sell the unnecessary items and change his life expectancy, because now his growth rate was thousands of times faster than in his past life, and he would soon be strong enough to go after Song Fei and settle the score. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the gloomy forest, a larger group faced a difficult battle against the corruptors. But, unlike expected, a more powerful type of creature, probably a hidden boss, appeared and wiped them all out at once with a single attack, forcing them to reappear at the city's rebirth point. There, players commented on the strange phenomenon, saying that the monster appeared just when they had too little life to finish them off, increasing their desperation even more. And that, in order to get out of that hell, they would need to reach at least level 3, but without being able to survive the challenges, it seemed impossible. Some suggested that they should form even larger groups, but others refuted this, saying that they had seen teams of 10 people massacred in the same way, proving that just increasing the number of players would not solve the problem, as real strength was needed to make progress. Among the groups returning to the city was Lizzie's group, who, frustrated, wondered aloud why the game was so difficult, while one of her companions commented that their life expectancy was plummeting rapidly, showing that time was against them. It was then that Lizzie, looking at the leaderboard, realized that the shadow player, Qin Feng, had already reached level 3, something that impressed her with the speed of his progress, leading her to conclude that he must have discovered some special method or hidden trick. Determined, Lizzie proposed that they spread the word that Shadow should help them reach level 3, offering him a reward of 10 million as payment, believing it to be a sum impossible to ignore, and immediately her group began spreading the word to everyone. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to advance at his own pace, defeating yet another level 2 corruptor, gaining another 20 experience points and another evolution point, which he used to continue improving his Greedy Hand skill, firmly determined to maximize his rewards and accelerate his growth without depending on anyone. Now, Qin Feng had reached 160% chance of obtaining loot after defeating enemies, and he also had an additional 20% chance that the items obtained would be of a much higher rank, which made him extremely satisfied, because he thought that if he continued to evolve this skill, he could soon reach 100 or even 200% chance of upgrades, which would make his growth skyrocket compared to the other players. While advancing through the forest, Qin Feng eventually came across a creature known as the Master of Damnation, a bronze tier boss that consumed large amounts of life expectancy from the victims it encountered. And, observing closely, Feng realized that the monster would soon evolve to silver rank, deducing that this being had already killed many players on that battlefield. Feng mentally commented that encountering this boss was very unlucky at that moment, as his inventory was already completely full, so he decided to mark the location on the map and come back later, planning to clear his inventory and return quickly, as he knew that boss evolution was a time-consuming process, and that he would still have plenty of time to face it before it became an even bigger threat. Meanwhile, in the main city where the players were gathered, everyone was frantically discussing how difficult it would be to get out of that game without reaching level 3, and the name Shadow, now top of the rankings, was mentioned frequently among the players. Until, to everyone's surprise, Shadow himself, Qin Feng, appeared walking calmly. Without saying anything, Feng simply sat down on the floor and started selling equipment and unique skill books he had collected, leaving everyone around impressed, as the strongest player on the server was offering items that could be vital for his survival. A mage called Grey Rose, currently ranked 11th, approached him with interest and asked how much the ice spell that Feng was showing cost, to which he replied good-naturedly that it cost 100 days of exchangeable life expectancy. Rosa protested, saying that 100 days was too high, but Qin Feng explained that magic was extremely powerful and that in the future, this price would be considered a real bargain, rejecting any attempt at direct negotiation. When Rosa asked if she could pay with real money, Feng replied that if she had money, she could use it to buy life expectancy within the game and thus make the exchange, as he only accepted exchangeable life expectancy as currency. With no other option, Rosa consulted her group, who, after some discussion, agreed to make the switch, justifying it on the grounds that, with such a powerful spell, they could reach level 3 more quickly, something that, at that moment, was an absolute priority for everyone. Feng reflected that Rosa's group must have already killed between 30 and 40 crawlers to be at level 2, which explained their good performance, but he knew that they were far from reaching their own growth rate. As she was finalizing the negotiation, Lizzie appeared in the crowd, approaching Feng with arrogance and announcing that she was giving him the chance to help her reach level 3, promising that as soon as they returned to the real world, she would reward him with 10 million in cash. The proposal shocked everyone who heard it, and Feng immediately recognized who it was. Jiang Li, a young woman who, in the future, would become the leader of a large criminal syndicate, which would later be completely annihilated by state forces. Jiang Li tried to convince him by saying that his father was the director of Jiang Industries and that payment would therefore be guaranteed. But Qin Feng, already aware of the true value of things in that new world, refused without hesitation. Annoyed by his refusal, Jiang Li tried to seduce him by promising him money, luxury, and women, saying that if he joined her, he could have everything he wanted. But Qin Feng, without losing patience, just said that if she wasn't going to buy anything, then she should get out of the way. Feng thought that, very soon, money would lose all its value, as life expectancy would be the real currency of the world, and that its promises were therefore useless, which made him even more determined to ignore it. Jiang Li, irritated, insisted that she was giving him a unique opportunity, and that she could even teach him a lesson right there. But Qin Feng only intimidated her with a cold stare, stating that if she uttered one more word, he would kill her to the point of reducing her life expectancy to 0, which caused everyone around to flee in terror without looking back. Taking advantage of the tense atmosphere, Feng managed to sell all the items he owned quickly, reflecting that no one there yet knew the real secret of the game, that the exchangeable life expectancy could be used to bring skills and equipment into the real world, and that by the time they discovered this, it would be too late to catch up. Meanwhile, Lizzie's group, completely humiliated and tired of running, gathered far from the square, and Lizzie, furious, vowed that, when she returned to reality, she would kill the man who had dared to defy her, vowing revenge without measure. It was then that a strange man approached her, introducing himself as Mao Lijun, saying that he was at level 2 and that, although he didn't normally teach tricks to anyone, he would make an exception for her, revealing a method to evolve faster. Mao Lijun explained that, in order to level up efficiently, it was necessary to put all the attribute points into agility, so that they could run away from the monster's attacks and reach the farming areas before the other players. And although Lizzie thought this idea was rubbish, as she had allocated all her points to strength, she decided to trust him, believing that he must know what he was doing. Lizzie proposed that they team up to increase their levels, offering 5 million as payment for Mao Lijun to help her, and he accepted without hesitation, commenting that Shadow might be strong. But he wasn't as intelligent as he was, mocking the fact that Qin Feng had turned down an offer of 10 million. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was already preparing to face the Master of Damnation, who, even while devouring the life expectancy of fallen players, had already evolved to the silver tier, although Feng knew that it would still take 7 to 8 hours for that boss to reach the gold tier, which gave him enough time to organize his strategy and defeat him in his current form. As soon as he found the Master of Damnation, Qin Feng didn't hesitate, and, coming out of stealth, launched his poison darts directly at the boss's forehead, causing 659 points of damage on impact, while the poison spread and caused a further 219 points of damage per second, taking advantage of the gap to disappear back into the shadows. The enraged Curse Master responded by charging a devastating skill that hit the entire surrounding area, destroying trees, rocks, and the nearby terrain, forcing Feng to move quickly quickly to avoid being hit, thinking that the boss's life was at least 2 or 3 times that of a normal bronze tier boss, which meant that it would take 2 or 3 more similar attacks to defeat him. During the destruction caused by the area skill, Feng was almost caught by one of the collateral blows and quickly analyzed that the Master of Damnation was clearly a mage-type boss, specializing in area skills that caused enormous amounts of damage, which forced Feng to launch his attacks and immediately get out of the enemy's reach so as not to be annihilated. Although the Curse Master couldn't see Feng directly, he seemed to have a vague idea of where he was hiding, and Qin Feng knew that the time between him coming out of stealth and being able to activate it again was his most vulnerable moment, so he needed to act with absolute precision. When the boss finished its attack of fury, Feng took advantage of the moment of vulnerability, activated stealth again, and hit another poison dart, causing another 659 points of damage and increasing the boss's vulnerability to the poison, which suffered even more continuous damage, forcing the creature to flee in panic through the forest. As intelligent bosses, when suffering a lot of damage, tried to escape to survive. Feng thought that resistance was pointless, as it was only a matter of time before the boss died, so, approaching with speed and precision, he came out of stealth and plunged his dagger straight into the Curse Master's head, ending the battle. As a reward, Qin Feng received 10,000 experience points, reaching level 5 directly, also gaining 4 evolution points and 124 days of exchangeable life expectancy, incredulous at the fact that he had risen 2 levels in one go, a rise that, in his previous life, would have taken him weeks to achieve. Immediately using the Greedy Hand skill, Qin Feng activated the doubling bonus and obtained another 8 evolution points and 248 days of additional life expectancy, adding up to a total of 12 evolution points and 372 days of life expectancy gained from that battle alone, as well as promoting one of the items dropped from the silver tier to the gold tier. Feng thought, half in shock, that it seemed like the protagonist of this life was getting everything handed to him, thinking that although the work wasn't bad, the ease with which he was achieving everything was almost unbelievable. On the battlefield, Qin Feng noticed that the Master of Damnation had dropped 7 or 8 valuable rewards, and as his inventory only held 10 items, he mentally commented that it was good that each one was worth it, as he couldn't carry everything he wanted. Looking at the rewards, he was completely shocked by the quality of one of the items, recognizing that this one in particular was truly exceptional. And meanwhile, new players were returning through the portal to the main city. Wang Meng's group excitedly commented on how much more powerful they had become after getting new skills and equipment, finally reaching level 3, and Grey Rose regretted not adding Shadow as a friend, recognizing his importance. When they checked the rankings, they were surprised to see that Shadow, i.e. Qin Feng, was already at level 5, a gigantic leap that could only be explained by the defeat of an incredibly powerful boss, leaving everyone in absolute shock at the difference in power. Wang Meng, trying to stay focused, said that they shouldn't worry about that now, because the most important thing was to get back to the real world to tell their families and friends about everything that was going on. And so the group returned successfully. Upon waking up in real life, Wang Meng opened his eyes in his bed, surrounded by members of a police battalion who were extremely excited about his return, quickly calling the others to witness his recovery, creating an atmosphere of relief and celebration. Later, back at the police station, Wang Meng gave a full report on the events that took place in the godforsaken game, explaining that there were several people with special hidden classes, and that one of them, called Shadow, had been instrumental in saving them, detailing that, at the time, Shadow was only at level 3, but that shortly afterwards, he had suddenly jumped to level 5, which impressed everyone present. The police captain commented that the growth was really remarkable and asked if Shadow could be a professional player, to which Wang Meng replied that Qin Feng had probably killed a very powerful boss to get that absurd amount of experience in such a short time. Another policeman asked why, according to reports, Shadow had not yet returned to reality, suggesting that perhaps he had no family waiting for him, while a woman on the team speculated that he might be a transmigrant, as orphans with this profile often became strong very quickly. However, the captain interrupted the jokes, saying that this was no time for manhwa's inspired jokes and that they needed to treat the situation seriously, stressing that the information brought by Wang Meng was extremely valuable and should be analyzed and released to the public with caution to reassure the families of the people still asleep. Finally, the officers commented that the phenomenon of the game was beyond current human understanding and that it was necessary to consider paranormal possibilities. While the police commander determined that an official emergency notice would be issued and that some officers would be tasked with directly exploring the mysterious godforsaken game in order to better understand the threat and seek ways to protect the population. Faced with the seriousness of the events, it was decided that they would need to form a veritable army within the godforsaken game to carry out the mission of stabilizing the situation, as the events of the game were already affecting the entire world, and all nations were facing increasing chaos due to the alarming number of people in a state of deep sleep, which could trigger irreversible catastrophes on a global scale if not controlled quickly. It was determined that the captain of Team 1 would personally go into the game, and that Wang Meng would act as vice captain of the team, both having the freedom to choose the members who would accompany them. And during the meeting, it was mentioned that Shadow, the mysterious player who had impressed them so much, could be extremely useful for the success of the mission. Therefore, everyone was instructed to try to make friends with Shadow if they met him, as well as opening an investigation to discover his true identity as soon as possible, as understanding who he was and what information he had about the game was considered fundamental to the stability of society and was treated as a top priority. After these instructions, everyone was dismissed, and later at Xiao's school, the main topic among the students was also the godforsaken game, commenting that people who went into a deep sleep were transported into the game and were stuck in the starting village until they managed to reach at least level 3. One of the girls expressed concern that her own parents would fall asleep and, without any experience of games, would lose their way and put themselves at risk, while another said that, if necessary, they could go in and save them themselves. Meanwhile, Xiao was thoughtfully annoyed that Qin Feng hadn't sent any messages, convinced that he was too arrogant to apologize, remembering that even when she got angry, he always tried to calm her down without hitting back, unlike now when he had mercilessly assaulted her. Xiao bitterly remembered that not even her parents had laid a finger on her, and yet Qin Feng had dared to do so, deciding that even if he apologized 1,000 times, she would never forgive him, although deep down, she felt comforted by the fact that she had seen Songfei the day before, thinking that it had been worth any sacrifice. While she was lost in these memories, Zhao saw something on her cell phone that made her excited. Songfei would soon be joining the game too, and she thought that if she did the same, she could meet him inside. Determined, Xiao decided to ask Zhang Wei how he had managed to reach level 3 so quickly, sending him a message. And Zhang Wei, deluded by the opportunity to get close to one of the school's goddesses, promptly replied that the secret was to put all the available points into agility. Xiao wondered if this was suitable for magic classes, to which Zhang Wei assured her that it was, explaining that agility helped her cast spells more quickly, and that if she still couldn't win on her own, she could rely on level 5 players who created teleportation formations to rescue newcomers from the starting village. Happy with the answer, Xiao celebrated in silence, determined to show Qin Feng that she could surpass him in everything and make him swallow his pride, while at the same moment, her brother was in another corner of the world, analyzing the new equipment he had acquired. Among the treasures obtained, Qin Feng found the gold-level cursed ring, which increased all his attributes by 8 points, which equated to a gross gain of 32 status points, as well as obtaining a new skill called Instant Shadow Slashes, which launched invisible arrows in the direction of enemies, slashing them 3 times and causing absurd damage that was even multiplied if used in stealth. Feng realized that this skill was not only useful for direct attacks, but also for causing area damage, further increasing his ability to eliminate quickly, which made him extremely satisfied. And he decided that it was the ideal time to use his remaining evolution points to improve his skills, raising his greedy hand to a 220% chance of extra loot and a 40% chance of promoting the rank of rewards. Qin Feng found that, with this enhancement, each monster defeated was equivalent to 3 in terms of profit, speeding up his evolution exponentially. He then used the remaining points to further strengthen Shadow's instant slashes, increasing the range and damage of the blows, although the recharge time remained the same, considering the rare and extremely efficient skill. While organizing his new powers, Qin Feng was attacked by 3 level 4 crawlers, but using his new ability, he eliminated all of them simultaneously with ease, testing the efficiency of his improvements in practice, receiving 5 days of life expectancy and an 80 experience points as a reward. With that, Qin Feng noticed that his killing efficiency was infinitely superior to his past life, able to eliminate weak monsters with 2 simple attacks and defeat bosses with a few critical hits, and noted with satisfaction that his total life expectancy was now 618 days. But he knew that he needed 900 days to be able to bring his skills and equipment into reality. He therefore decided to return immediately to the city to sell all the loot he had accumulated, planning to continue killing until he reached level 10 and began the real transition to the real world, where his power would make all the difference. Later, back in the forest, Qin Feng watched discreetly as Mao Lijun talked to Lizzie, who had finally reached level 3, with Mao demanding payment as agreed. Lizzie arrogantly assured him that the change was nothing to her and promised that she would make the transfer as soon as she returned to the real world. She also offered to buy days of life expectancy for 10,000 each, suggesting that she could get rich quickly at the expense of others if she continued doing business like that, while Qin Feng, from afar, just watched and prepared to take the next step in his climb to the top. Mao Lijun, satisfied, replied that there was nothing wrong with waiting, and commented to himself that it was clear that Shadow had been a complete idiot for not accepting Lizzie's proposal because, according to his logic, turning life expectancy into real money was a unique opportunity that only a true genius could realize, convinced that he was far ahead of the other players. Meanwhile, Qin Feng, unconcerned with other people's conversations was in the city, activating a teleportation formation, taking advantage of the fact that he had reached level 5, yes, which allowed him to open transportation portals and earning a reputation point as a reward for doing so. Feng was mentally commenting that the city's teleportation formation was two-way, allowing communication between cities only if both reached level 5 and activated their own formations. And he remembered that in his past life, Song Fei had settled in the city of Fireflies, so he was thinking of creating an alert that would automatically notify him if someone activated the formation in that city, so that he could act immediately. Even so, Feng reflected that, for him, teleporting between cities wasn't that important, as his real goal was to reach level 10 and move on to the Forsaken Realm of the Gods, where the real game would begin, with challenges and rewards on a completely different scale. Back in town, Qin Feng started selling all the items he had collected, and people quickly recognized him, as they remembered that last time he had helped a lot by offering powerful items. And now again, a crowd formed around him, quickly buying up everything he had to sell, with skills and equipment being sold in a matter of minutes. This time, the players were willing to pay very high prices, with some skills being exchanged for up to 300 days of life expectancy. And Qin Feng, observing their enthusiasm, thought that he had managed to sell absolutely everything in less than a minute, accumulating a total of 650 days of life expectancy in this operation alone. Adding it all up, Qin Feng now had 2,174 days of life expectancy. But even so, he knew that he was still far from having enough to transfer all his attributes, profession, and equipment to the real world, something that would require an even greater effort. While he was organizing his resources, a girl approached him saying that she had a treasure that might interest him. And as he watched her, Qin Feng realized that she was a player called Black Plum, who offered him a space ring capable of increasing the limit of his inventory by 12 spaces, something simply impressive and invaluable at that stage of the game. Feng, impressed, thought that in his past life an item like that would easily sell for 3,600 days of life expectancy, and curious, asked how much he wanted for the ring, to which Black Plum replied that she didn't want life expectancy as payment, but only that he agreed to add her as a friend and help her kill a boss. Feng accepted the proposal, asking which boss they would need to face, and Black Plum explained that it was a gold-level boss who inhabited a swamp. Although he didn't know its name, he only remembered that the scenario involved a ghost boat, which immediately made Qin Feng think of the rumors from his past life, where the ghost boatman was fiercely contested by all players due to the very rare equipment he dropped. Taking a closer look at Black Plum, Qin Feng deduced that she might be that player known as Pei Shi Koi from his past life, famous for finding rare treasures and bosses just by wandering around in nature, a gift that many thought was just hearsay, but which he now saw with his own eyes was real. Curious, Qin Feng asked how she had found that boss, and Black Plum explained that after finishing her offline meal, she had wanted to get into the game quickly to level up with her friends, but as they were at very low levels, she decided to go for a walk on her own and ended up spotting the boss under a cliff. Feng reflected that in his past life, rumors said that Wang Meng's group had a member with the so-called carp physique who was lucky enough to find secret locations and hidden bosses without any planning, and now he understood that this player was probably the source of this legend. Black Plum, noticing that Feng was staring at her, asked why, but he disguised it by saying that he was just thinking out loud, although at that moment a hidden messenger had overheard the conversation and rushed to report to his boss that he had found the girl and that Shadow had taken her out of the city, prompting the boss to comment sarcastically that a brat like him couldn't resist a girl and ordering his entire group to be prepared to capture them. Qin Feng then proposed to Black Plum that they could fight the boss together, where he would concentrate on causing as much damage as possible to secure the best items and skills, dividing the spoils according to how useful they would be to each of them. Black Plum accepted the proposal, but asked for a small additional favor, saying that if Feng sold the equipment to Wang Meng's group or to others, he should give a small discount, and Qin Feng, thinking it was fair, agreed. Black Plum, excited, said that she would let Wang Meng know as soon as they got back, but first she wanted to confirm where they were going, and when she heard that they were already leaving to face the boss, she was completely terrified, saying that she was only a mage and couldn't withstand the attacks of that powerful boss. However, Qin Feng calmly replied that she didn't need to worry, as he alone was enough to defeat the boss, and that she just needed to watch, which left her even more shocked, thinking that it was absurd for a single person to believe that they could defeat a gold-level boss on their own. Before she could reply, Qin Feng activated his stealth and disappeared before her eyes, and the group of enemies chasing them, thinking that he had run away and abandoned Black Plum, decided to attack immediately, but to their surprise, Qin Feng was just waiting for the right moment. As soon as they approached, Qin Feng activated his instant shadow slash's skill and eliminated all the opponents in one fell swoop, showing that his confidence in himself was not arrogance, but pure and absolute ability. After eliminating 5 players in one go, Qin Feng realized that he had only received 12 days of life expectancy in total, mentally commenting that they were so poor that it seemed as if he had only killed 2 ordinary crawlers, showing total contempt for the strength of that insignificant group. Black Plum, still trying to understand the situation, asked where he had gone, and Qinfeng calmly replied that he had realized they were being followed and had therefore eliminated them all quickly, while Black Plum, a little embarrassed, said she thought he had simply gone to urinate in the woods, taking the opportunity to ask if it was true that he could become invisible like that and kill players so easily. She jokingly asked if he could even go potty in the forest while remaining invisible. But Qinfeng, ignoring her teasing, just asked her to take him to the boss right away, as time was precious. Meanwhile, in the main city, a new player was entering the game, Xiao, who was impressed by the realism of the environment, although she noticed that she didn't feel pain even when she was hurt, and commented to herself that she had obtained a hidden class called Sacrifice, believing that this class would be more powerful than anything her brother had achieved, and that it could certainly help her get even closer to Song Fei. Xiao thought that perhaps Qinfeng knew about this secret attribute, but she was convinced that even though he always cared about her, when she needed him most, he wasn't there to help her, and she told herself that she didn't care, because now she could count on Wang Meng, who had promised to help her. Soon after, when she met Wang Meng, Xiao saw the player rankings and was shocked to realize that Shadow was already at level 6, commenting that Wang Meng bragged about being at level 3, but that the real professional was that Shadow, and she began to wonder how she could meet this extraordinary person. Elsewhere in the city, a group of players were bemoaning the lack of support from a healer, saying that they couldn't go on hunting monsters and bosses without proper healing when Xiao approached, saying that she had a hidden class that allowed healing, immediately gaining their attention. Meanwhile, on the cliff, Qinfeng was carefully analyzing the scene before him, confirming that the boss really was the gold-level ghost boatman, and instructing Black Plum to hide well, as he would be dealing with this challenge alone. The system then notified that, due to the presence of the ghost boatmen, the area had become a violent domain, where players would lose 100 times their life expectancy simply by staying there, which meant that 15 minutes in that zone was equivalent to losing an entire day's worth of life. Faced with the level 5, gold-ranked ghost boatman Dasuman, Qinfeng thought that it had been a long time since he had faced such a dangerous creature, but with 45 minutes of life expectancy left, he believed he could handle the situation. His first move was to use Shadow's instant slashes, dealing 549 points of damage with each blow, followed by a poison dart that landed a critical hit for 621 points. In addition to the continuous poison damage that ate away at the boss's life, Qinfeng reflected that killing the ghost boatman was extremely difficult, mainly because his weakness was not in his body, but in the boat itself, and that when he hit this weakness, the boss controlled the surrounding body of water to unleash devastating area attacks. Knowing that the damage from these pillars of water was absurd, Qinfeng used his high agility to dodge all the deadly attacks, but he knew that he would soon face an even bigger problem: the summoning of 12 aquatic zombies, each equivalent to silver-ranked monsters, renewed every 3 minutes during the battle. Even so, thanks to his stealth and enhanced skills, Qinfeng eliminated all the zombies with his instant cuts, keeping control of the situation, while Black Plum, watching from afar, was increasingly impressed by the supernatural strength and skill that this lone assassin displayed. Qinfeng, via chat, warned Black Plum that he would soon die, leaving her extremely surprised, because until that moment he had seemed invincible, but he knew what was coming. When the ghost boatman reached half his life, he would launch an area attack using cursed souls, paralyzing all players in range for 5 seconds, more than enough time to cause instant deaths. As predicted, when he was hit by the skill, Qinfeng died, losing 326 days of non-exchangeable life expectancy and 1,087 days of exchangeable life expectancy, while the group of criminals who had tried to ambush him celebrated from a distance, believing that they would now be able to steal all his loot. However, when that same group stepped into the ghost boatman's violent domain, they were killed instantly without any chance of reaction, being sent back to the city, confused and terrified by the boss's absurd strength. Meanwhile, Qinfeng, already revived, was quietly collecting all the life expectancy orbs left behind, taking advantage of his enemy's recklessness to recover much of what he had lost. Intrigued by the number of orbs, Qinfeng asked Black Plum why so many were scattered around, and she explained that the group he had killed earlier had returned to try to kill him and steal his life expectancy, but had ended up being eliminated by the boss himself, serving as a source of additional resources for him. Qinfeng quickly realized that he had underestimated the strength of the ghost boatman, because in his past life he had seen many people suffer at the hands of this creature, even more so considering that it was a gold-ranked boss with many dangerous abilities and an absurd amount of life, and as much as he knew it would be difficult, he decided that even with half of the boss's life remaining, he would not back down and would continue fighting until the end. Taking advantage of the knowledge he had acquired earlier, Qinfeng threw a poison dart directly at the bell attached to the boat, which provoked the boatman's fury, who immediately began attacking the whole area with even more ferocity. But now, knowing the boss's attack pattern, Qin Feng was able to use his shadow instant slashes to attack directly and reposition himself quickly, avoiding damage. Meanwhile, the group of criminals who had been killed earlier returned to the cliff, and Black Plum, sensing their approach, decided to act to prevent them from causing any more trouble, casting a lightning spell directly over their heads, leaving them charred immediately, which made them even more furious, and caused them to run after her in search of revenge. However, another group appeared, trying to take advantage of the confusion, further increasing the chaos in the area, while Qin Feng, totally focused on the battle against the ghost boatman, felt the adrenaline rushing through his body, knowing that the boss was already very close to being defeated, despite still posing a huge threat due to his absurd strength. Qin Feng knew that his raw damage was still too low to deal with a gold-ranked boss, and he still had to deal with the constant threat of criminals and opportunists appearing in the forest, waiting for the right moment to steal his rewards if he faltered. As soon as he managed to kill the ghost boatman, Qin Feng immediately activated his invisibility skill to avoid ambushes, and was rewarded with 4,800 experience points, rising directly to level 8, as well as receiving 7 evolution points and 216 days of life expectancy. For being the first player to defeat a gold-ranked boss, Qin Feng also gained 3 reputation points, and this news quickly spread through the cities, impressing all the players who learned of the feat and consolidating Shadow's reputation as the strongest player of the moment, making Xiao, on hearing the news, think that he needed to get closer to him at any cost to achieve his goal of staying by Songfei's side. At the site of the battle, several precious rewards had fallen to the ground, and the group of opportunists were preparing to steal everything using their specific skills, with one archer using a ghostly hawk to reveal any enemies hiding in the area. But even with this skill, Qin Feng's invisibility was so advanced that they were unable to detect him. The archer, finding nothing, commented that Shadow had probably already fled, so the group prepared to loot the spoils. But before they could act, Qin Feng, taking advantage of the moment of carelessness, eliminated all of them instantly using his Shadow Instant cuts, bringing absolute silence to the battlefield once again. Taking advantage of the situation, Qin Feng used his evolution points to further increase his greedy hand skill, achieving a 100% chance of raising the category of the items, which represented an immense change in the quality of the loot he would win from now on. With the activation of the skill, Qin Feng received 21 evolution points and 648 days of life expectancy, as well as obtaining double the special item Phantom Fire Bell, whose description said that the item would not lose its duration even after death, and had a recharge time of 1,560 seconds, a passive soul-absorbing ability that increased the duration by 20% with each monster killed, and when shaken, immobilized all enemies within 100 meters for 3 seconds, made all the more practical because the 2 bells only took up 1 piece of equipment. Meanwhile, Black Plum was shouting for help over the chat, saying that she was trapped on the edge of the cliff, surrounded by enemies on all sides, and Qin Feng, even though he knew she hated being called by that nickname, asked where she was. Desperate, Black Plum looked down and, without much thought, threw herself off the cliff, falling headfirst to the ground and cracking the soil, while one of the criminals commented that she was very determined, and Black Plum, already revived in the city, warned that she no longer needed help, as she had transferred all her life expectancy points to her captain before she died, ensuring that everything was under control. Qin Feng agreed and said that he would then pass on the combined items and skills to her, reflecting that he had been very lucky in that battle, as he had now accumulated 3,115 days of life expectancy and 21 extra evolution points. Knowing that he would need 210 evolution points to raise the greedy hand to the legendary level, which justified the very high cost given the absurd power the skill would achieve, Qin Feng decided that, for the time being, he would leave this evolution for later. He then used his points to further evolve his instant shadow slashes skill, significantly increasing the range and damage of his attacks, further strengthening his lethal and stealthy combat style, preparing himself for the even greater challenges to come. In addition to all the improvements he had already achieved, Qin Feng even increased the damage multiplier for attacks carried out while stealthy or invisible. And with this evolution, the damage of his stealth attacks had basically doubled, allowing a single stealth strike to now easily reach 3,000 points of damage. And adding up all the cuts from his instant shadow cuts skill, the total damage could easily exceed 7,000 points. Qin Feng had also won many extremely powerful items after the battle against the ghost boatman, and even though he shared some of the loot with Black Plum, what he had left was absolutely unprecedented, starting with the ghost boatman's double blades, which provided 136% attack, 22% agility, 24% attack speed, and 17% armor penetration, plus the effect that each normal attack counted as 2 blows, something that, although it wouldn't be used as much now because Qin Feng was concentrating more on skills, in the future, especially in prolonged combat, would be of enormous use due to the synergy with his skill recovery speed. In addition to the blades, Qinfeng also obtained the ghostly fire leather armor, which granted 25 physical defense, 50 fire resistance, 14 damage blocking, and an additional 419 life points, which made him think that with this protection, most players wouldn't even be able to damage him efficiently. And he also planned to make his armor invisible to keep his body protected without losing the strategic advantage of stealth. In the midst of this preparation, Qinfeng also acquired a new assassin skill called Ghostly Shadow Blur, which gave him a 15% chance of completely dodging a blow, guaranteeing total immunity to the skill's damage if the dodge was activated. And although he remembered that this skill was considered weak in his past life, for him, who could evolve any skill indefinitely, it became an important part of his survival. Determined to finish the business, Qinfeng prepared to return to the city and divide up the spoils that Black Plum deserved, as well as finally taking the promised space ring and selling the rest of the items collected. But as he turned a corner, he came across the group of criminals who had tried to kill him earlier, and instead of confronting him, they began to run desperately. But even so, Qinfeng killed them all quickly, even without gaining anything from it. One of the criminals, in desperation, begged Qinfeng not to kill him, claiming that he had less than a year's life expectancy left in the game, but Qinfeng only asked him if he thought about the consequences when he attacked his innocent victims, and without hesitation, threw a poison dart straight into the criminal's face, killing him in the same instant. Because he had killed so many players, Qinfeng had been given the status of assassin, which meant that if he died, he would lose 75% of his entire life expectancy, but he thought that this wouldn't be a problem because no one there would be strong enough to kill him anyway. Returning to the city, Qinfeng found the predictable scene of eager players waiting for their new sales, at which point one of the players, who had previously planned to steal his items, approached him, offering a skill book as a bribe, trying to prevent Qinfeng from revealing his treachery to everyone. The skill book was called Impul, a blow that stunned the enemy for 2 seconds, and although Qinfeng accepted the bribe, he knew he would only do it for now as he would still decide how to deal with them in the future, while the other players, furious, promised that next time they would kill that traitor without hesitation. The leader of the criminal group, on the other hand, insisted that they weren't seeing the whole picture, claiming that Shadow probably had a hidden secret, and that if they discovered his identity in real life, they could kidnap him or do anything to force him to reveal his tricks. And since they had heard his voice, finding this person would become much easier, especially now that the leader claimed to have a contact who specialized in locating people in the real world. Meanwhile, Qinfeng went to Little Black, as he called Black Plum, to share everything they had agreed, although she grumbled that he shouldn't call her by that nickname, but she still thanked him immensely, saying that the skills and equipment she had received had multiplied her magical power several times over, making a point of showing her gratitude. Qinfeng replied that everything was as agreed and that he now wanted the ring, the space ring, making it clear so that there would be no misunderstandings, and Black Plum happily handed over the ring and commented that, while trying to escape from the forest, she had found a mysterious underground cave, asking if Qinfeng would like to explore it together with her. Qinfeng, observing that Black Plum had a natural talent for finding unique places and opportunities, thought that befriending her was a huge benefit, as she had already found a gold-ranked boss and was now discovering a secret cave, which made it clear that sincerity and mutual benefit would be essential to maintaining this partnership. Equipped with the new space ring, Qinfeng now had 27 spaces in his inventory, a significant improvement for his growth, but he asked Black Plum where Wang Meng was, as he still wanted to sell him some items at a discount, as agreed. Black Plum explained that they were training the group's new priestess, and that she had marked the exact location of the entrance to those mysterious ruins for Feng on the map, indicating a stone slab hidden behind bushes as a reference point. She said that she just moved the slab and found the entrance, but as she took a few steps into the cave, she heard frightening screams coming from the depths, which made her run out in terror. But before she could say anything else, Qinfeng had already disappeared, activating his stealth and running quickly toward the forest, determined to explore the new location before other players found out. Qinfeng had originally thought that he would only find places like that when he reached level 10, but since he had found these ruins now, there was no reason to turn down the opportunity, as he knew that there were 3 main types of ruins for beginners: tombs, cursed ruins, and temples of faith. And regardless of which one it was, the common monsters inside were usually bronze ranked, with a few silver ranked ones, no great threat to someone of his current level. Thus, Qinfeng advanced into the cave hidden in the ruins, knowing that the monsters themselves would pose no real challenge, but that, as was customary in these areas, at the end of every ruin, there was always a gold-ranked boss, and in the cursed ruins, the monsters were even more peculiar, as they had been cursed by ancient and evil gods, many of them being former humans who had gone mad, or ghosts who continued to wander even after death. Looking closely at the murals on the walls, Qinfeng recognized the place. because it was a temple of faith, a very familiar environment for him, and from the symbolism, he soon deduced that he was in front of the temple of the elder god of judgment, the same place where, in his past life, he had obtained the legendary Eye of Judgment. Meanwhile, in the forest, Wang Meng suffered trying to defeat a predator, being thrown far even with his shield up, while the team pressured Xiao to heal quickly. But Xiao, trembling with fear, didn't know how to use his ability correctly and, without thinking, dropped his staff on the ground, which resulted in everyone's death and a forced return to the main city. Black Plum, trying to defuse the situation, asked the captain if they had already tried to buy new equipment, explaining that Shadow had not yet returned, and the captain replied that they would try again later. But the group's archer exploded in fury, calling Xiao useless, stating that she was worse than the last member of the group. Black Plum tried to argue by saying that it was normal to die a few times in games like that, but the knight pondered that. In just 1 hour, they had already died 3 times in a row, something that was greatly hindering the team's progress. And to try to solve it, Black Plum suggested that she herself could help, as she now had very strong equipment and skills thanks to Shadow. Wang Meng thought the idea was reasonable and accepted, saying that he would do his best to collaborate, but internally, Black Plum thought that group was completely incompetent and secretly planned that as soon as he had direct and constant contact with Shadow, he would leave them all behind, as he considered most of them to be useless. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to explore the Temple of Faith, advancing through the corridors until he came across followers of the level 10, silver-ranked Elder God, monsters that, even with all his strength, he couldn't defeat straight away, as his instant cuts only took about 1/5 of their life, showing that they were enemies far above average for beginners. Despite this, the followers didn't attack Qin Feng, even though he had revealed his position, which made him suspect that perhaps, due to the presence of the Eyes of Judgment, they still recognized him as the representative of their god, or perhaps they were simply instinctively obeying a higher authority. Taking advantage of the situation, Qin Feng mentally asked the followers to guide him into the temple, and they began to walk, but on detecting the presence of intruders, the followers fiercely advanced against an invading group, which was precisely the Grey Rose players' group, wiping them all out quickly. Qin Feng, observing from afar, was surprised to see that they had found that spot so soon, but he didn't regret it, as by defeating the group, many days of life expectancy were left behind, which he promptly collected, further increasing his earnings. After confirming that there were no traps or hidden treasures in the area, and even if the 2 followers obeyed him, Qin Feng killed them in cold blood, securing another 4,000 experience points, rising to level 9, gaining 4 evolution points, and 188 days of life expectancy, as well as multiplying all the gains thanks to his Hand of Greed skill, which left him increasingly impressed with the efficiency of this skill. Among the rewards, Qin Feng obtained a gold-level piece of equipment for assassins, which reduced the recharge time of skills by 20%, increased his agility by 15 points, and even summoned a devoted follower, which he was very pleased about, as the active and passive effect of the item was simply perfect for his stealthy and aggressive style of play. After defeating the bosses and scouring the area, Qin Feng noticed a type of hidden button, and by pressing it, he activated a mechanism that revealed a hidden elevator, which took him to a depth of at least 300 meters below the Temple of Faith. Now, Qin Feng found himself inside a real underground labyrinth, and with his past life experience, he knew that there was a certain chance of finding these labyrinths in ancient ruins, and that these places were full of deadly traps. But as long as he remained attentive and careful, they wouldn't pose much danger to someone like him. The traps, although fatal, could be overcome with intelligence, and Qin Feng was already thinking of using his new ability to summon a devout follower, sending him ahead to activate all the traps before heading off, thus guaranteeing his own safety while he calmly explored the treasures hidden in the depths of the temple. Qin Feng, analyzing his options, decided to use his evolution points to increase his dodging ability, raising the rate from 15% to an impressive 75%, something that bordered on practical immortality in combat. But even with this absurd advantage, Feng thought that he still wouldn't be able to evolve this ability from epic to legendary, because the cost of evolution grew exponentially, requiring 10 times as many points with each level increase, which made it clear that in order to raise all his skills to legendary level, he would need to accumulate an almost absurd amount of evolution points, and at the moment, he only had 11. He also decided to improve his stealth skill, which still had a slightly high recharge time, but which, with time and further improvements, would become practically permanent, further increasing his mastery of the battlefield. While exploring the labyrinth, his summoned follower ended up stepping on a trap and was crushed by a giant rock, causing Qin Feng to realize that his summoner had died, so he decided to wait for the recharge time needed to summon another follower and continue using him as bait to activate the trap safely. At that moment, Grey Rose's group returned to the Temple of Faith, cautiously advancing to the place where they had previously encountered monsters. But when they arrived, they realized that all the enemies had disappeared, and they were deeply shocked, as it was unusual for silver-ranked creatures to simply vanish out of thin air. Suspecting what might have happened, Grey Rose remembered that they had seen a strange person before being attacked, and thought that perhaps it was Shadow, wondering if it was really possible that someone had defeated two such strong bosses in such a simple way, which made her realize that the power of this mysterious player was even more terrifying than she could have imagined. Meanwhile, Qinfeng continued to advance slowly through the labyrinth, sending his summons ahead to activate traps, saving time and ensuring his own safety until, after hours of exploration, he finally reached the end of the labyrinth, remembering his past life when crossing a similar structure would have required killing countless players in fierce disputes. Making his devotee open the large doors, Feng observed that the poor follower couldn't even move the heavy structures. So with a simple touch of his own hand, he opened the entrance as if by magic, revealing a huge hidden garden, and in the center a treasure guarded by a female figure who looked like a priestess. There was no visible information about her, no name, no level, no rank, and when she tried to interact, the priestess uttered a few words in a language Feng didn't understand, and disappeared amidst an intense glow, also making the thorns protecting the chest disappear. Feng, still suspicious of a possible trap, ordered his follower to open the chest, and the moment he did, an intense light appeared, revealing a very rare skill book, a divine-level skill for assassins, which granted a passive ability that made it easier to find weak points and doubled the damage applied to those points, as well as an active ability that allowed him to attack the enemy's throat directly, causing 100% additional damage for 3 seconds as a bleeding effect. Qinfeng was deeply impressed, because on top of everything else, this skill was already at the legendary level, which made it incredibly difficult to evolve further, but it was still an absurd gain, insanely multiplying all the damage potential he already possessed. With his inventory full, Qinfeng decided to return immediately to the city to sell the surplus items, telling Black Plum that he was returning, to which she replied that she would also be back quickly, eager to see what else she could get. As soon as he arrived, Qinfeng saw a real crowd gathered waiting for him, players from every city, each wanting to buy items, make friends, or simply be close to Shadow, as his fame had already spread all over the world, boosted even more by the activation of the teleport formations between cities. Feng, observing the confusion, knew that now he could finally make his way to Songfei City. But first, using his invisibility, he simply disappeared from the square, causing the crowd, confused and frustrated, to start fighting among themselves for no reason. Qinfeng, invisible, went straight to where Little Black was, thinking that perhaps her captain was nearby. And when he arrived, he saw his sister Xiao and wondered why she was now in Wang Meng's team, imagining that they had probably almost been destroyed because of her. Feng knew he couldn't reveal himself, because now everyone knew of the legendary Shadow's existence, and if he couldn't take his skills and equipment into the real world, his own life would be at risk. Meanwhile, Xiao, totally impressed by Shadow, decided that she would do anything to be carried by him, believing that she could soon be in the arms of Song Fei. Completely blinded by her obsession, Feng began selling some very powerful items and skills to Wang Meng, applying the promised discount and allowing him to pay in installments, leaving Wang Meng extremely grateful, promising that if Shadow needed anything in the future, they would be ready to help him. Thanks to this new equipment and skills, the group was now able to face any initial challenge in the game. But Xiao, realizing that there was no item reserved for her, asked directly if there was anything she could use, even trying to add Shadow as a friend, only to receive a cold, dismissive stare that made her wince, while Feng silently reaffirmed that he didn't intend to carry dead weight this time. The people around commented loudly that Xiao had been completely ignored by Shadow, and of course, on hearing this, Xiao felt deeply humiliated, unable to hide the shame that dominated her face, while Qinfeng, watching from afar, thought that he actually had a gold-level priest scepter in his inventory that could be extremely useful to her, but even so, he would never consider handing over something so valuable to Xiao, as he wouldn't waste his resources on someone so useless. In addition, Qinfeng still had many rare skills to sell and was trading them all with Wang Meng, accumulating life expectancy in return, and at the same time, strengthening his influence and gradually gaining the trust of that group, consolidating his position as a powerful ally. But even while carrying out these transactions, Feng had an even more important goal in mind. He needed to find a perfect priestess for Wang Meng's group, someone he knew well from his past life. A young woman called Gu Yichui, a member of the legendary Guild of Godslayers, a player with a hidden class called Priestess of the White Bird, capable of defeating epic-level bosses on her own, something that put Xiao in a pathetic position of comparison. Knowing this, Qinfeng knew that in order to find her, he would need to use the teleportation formation and head to the City of Fireflies, where, as well as Gu Yichui, he would also find Song Fei, another character he needed to keep a close eye on. When he arrived in the City of Fireflies, Feng realized that the atmosphere was very different from what he had expected, because the place was silent and desolate, with very few people wandering the streets, and the few that remained seemed completely disoriented and in chaos. Looking closely, Qinfeng saw a group where a single player was surrounded by countless low-level kids, and he immediately recognized the scene because he knew who the individual was who had managed to attract so many people. It was Song Fei, much easier to find than he had anticipated. Slipping through the shadows invisibly, Qinfeng walked through the pipes in the area and made his way to the area called the Valley of Lamentations, a level 5 area where he knew flaming spirits and the fearsome chained ones lived, monsters that caused serious problems for unprepared players. While observing discreetly, Qinfeng saw a group of players taking a real beating from a two-headed flaming spirit, a silver-ranked boss, and realized that the situation was chaotic not only because of the monsters, but also because the players themselves were fighting among themselves, killing each other, forming makeshift factions that tried to control the area. In the midst of this pandemonium, Qinfeng noticed that Song Fei was at the center of all the confusion, protected by a group of fanatical girls who threw themselves in front of him to defend him from ambushes, traps, and attacks coming from all directions, while other groups tried to eliminate him to steal his resources. Feng knew very well that, despite the impressive title of Magician God, Song Fei was nothing more than an ordinary player with the Magician class, and that in his past life he had tricked hundreds of girls into choosing Magician classes, and then appropriated all the best equipment and skills they could get, accelerating his own growth at the expense of others. Knowing that a group made up only of mages would be vulnerable, Song Fei manipulated these players to invest massively in strength and life attributes, making them shields of flesh that could withstand attacks, while he strengthened himself. And Qinfeng, observing all this, thought coldly that, in the past, many of these girls died in real life trying to protect someone who never intended to repay their sacrifice. Song Fei kept complaining, saying how bad it felt to see his sisters working so hard for him. He kept wishing that Boss would die soon, just so everyone could rest. Deep down, he wanted a world full of peace, love, and no violence. But even with this speech, he was the first to tell his sisters to kill that ugly beast right away. Despite all this talk, Song Fei's sisters didn't seem to be that weak. However, the boss was also very powerful. A fireball almost hit Song Fei directly, but one of the girls threw herself in front of him, sacrificing herself to the game. At that moment, he felt sad, but it was all just an act. They kept fighting, saying that all they had to do was push a little harder and the beast would die. They were all extremely motivated, even using high-level spells. They attacked that flaming spirit with lightning bolts straight to the head. Song Fei thought that the monster was finally going to die. He thought it was absurd that even a silver tier boss was so difficult to defeat and wondered how anyone had managed to kill a gold tier boss on their own. In his mind, it had to be a bug. Surely that guy had several people helping him, and yet he was only at level 7. He wondered how that shadow guy could level up so quickly. He imagined that by defeating that boss, he would rise straight to level 8 and be able to pass Shadow, who had been stuck at level 9 for a long time. In his mind, it was only a matter of time before he became one of the kings of this game. But suddenly, Shadow appeared as if the whole thing was nothing. He simply grabbed Song Fei's head and decapitated her using his instant shadow cut. Soon afterwards, when all the little sisters tried to react, they were also beheaded, one by one. In the end, Shadow earned 1,500 XP, not only for killing everyone there, but also for defeating the boss, who was that two-headed flaming spirit. The players nearby were shocked, wondering who this powerful guy was. Some said he killed everything in sight. Others were trying to confirm whether that killer was really the legendary Shadow, the one who managed to defeat the first gold tier boss. Most of them were already running away, but some of the braver ones stayed to admire him, saying that he was incredible, that he had killed Song Fei and saved a lot of people. However, Shadow thought that these people were only saying this because they were scared, afraid that they would be the next victims. If this had been his past life, all these people would have gathered to hunt him down and steal all his loot. Meanwhile, back in the city, Song Fei received notification that he had been killed by Shadow. He had lost days of exchangeable life expectancy and a further 18 years and 113 days of non-exchangeable life expectancy. He was confused, wondering if he had really died. He couldn't understand how Shadow had ended up in Firefly City. The sisters were also indignant, not understanding why, among so many cities, he had appeared right there and wondering if Song Fei had really died too. Song Fei, annoyed, commented that in the end he just wanted to kill that silver tier boss. People began to say that he was a disgusting man who had ambushed them. Then another little girl appeared, apparently very silly and cross-eyed. It's not a criticism of cross-eyed people, but in that game, the design of the silly characters was represented just like that, which seemed a bit strange. Song Fei's sisters said that they only accepted mages in the group, but he ignored them and said no, that it was one big family. He said he loved everyone and could win anyone's heart. He said he could feel the girl's passion, even though she was an archer, and assured her that she could join the group without a problem. The girl started crying, almost drooling, and said she loved him. Soon, other girls began to join in too. Assassins, mages, archers, and warriors gathered around Song Fei, who took advantage of the fact that he was in the starting city to win over even more players from there. The group of girls in love with him grew a lot, and now they were all declared enemies of Shadow. They were completely focused on hunting him down and trying to kill him. Not Sonic Shadow, but Shadow the Killer. They all wanted to take revenge on him. In the midst of this, some players, curious about the movement, asked what all the noise was about. Another replied that it was just a new celebrity appearing there. Some commented that it was great when Song Fei died, but found it strange how he managed to die, considering that he was surrounded by so many girls protecting him. They soon discovered that the killer was Shadow himself. There was nothing more to say. Some said that he was crazy to mess with those girls, that they were completely insane. But for Song Fei, that was fine. The more witnesses, the better, because when he finally managed to kill Shadow, everyone would understand that going it alone was nothing compared to having a big group, especially against fragile killers like him. Song Fei wondered how a frail and dirty assassin like Shadow could compare to a noble mage like him. Meanwhile, Shadow was enjoying all the loot from the battle. He used his skill called Greedy Hand and gained 16 evolution points, 217 days of exchangeable life expectancy, as well as 6 silver level loots and 1 gold level loot. He spent the evolution points to improve the skill Grant Mercy, which was upgraded from epic to legendary. This increased its damage when hitting weak points from an extra 100% to an extra 200%. The effect of the Cutthroat skill, which previously dealt 100% attack damage, has now been increased to 150%. In addition, the cooldown of this skill has dropped from 22 seconds to 18.5 seconds. Shadow also noticed an improvement in the enemy's weak points. Before, the weak point was just the head. Now, it also applies to the neck and chest. Of course, the greatest damage is still to the head, but the weak point bonus works from the chest upwards. Even your instant shadow blow now deals weak point damage, making it even more deadly. Cutthroat's damage has become absurd, and with the reduced cooldown, he realized that he was now even able to defeat a gold level boss with just one well-timed blow. He reflected that a skill that starts out epic only costs 1 evolution point to upgrade to legendary, but to upgrade from legendary to mythical, the cost is 100 times higher. And from there, the costs only multiply exponentially. For example, your Greedy Hand skill, which is currently at epic level and cost 210 points to get there, would need more than 3,400 points just to evolve to legendary. At the moment, he only had 9 points left, which wasn't enough to upgrade any of his main skills. So he decided to spend 8 points to upgrade a skill that was at a very low level, back attack, which went from gold to platinum. The damage of this skill increased from 30% to 40%. Now there was only 1 evolution point left. Shadow found it impressive how a simple silver tier boss, faced by a group of players, gave him more than 100 days of exchangeable life expectancy. With everything settled, he thought it was time to go back. But at that moment, he was surprised by an assassin who appeared in front of him trying to kill him. As expected, he dodged the blow as if it were nothing. The assassin tried to escape using stealth, disappearing soon after. Meanwhile, Song Fei's sisters were already on the scene, shouting that ugly Shadow had to die immediately. And of course, there was the cross-eyed archer again. It's no criticism, but in that game, the silly character was represented with just that trait, which made the situation a little funny. When they realized they were about to be attacked, Shadow quickly activated his stealth. The archer, who had the ability to detect stealth, tried to find him, but his stealth was of such a high level that, instead of detecting him, she ended up detecting only the same girl who had tried to attack him earlier. Song Fei's sisters, not realizing their mistake, went all out on the girl, blowing her up in the process. Only then did they realize that it wasn't Shadow. The fat girl in the group, seeing the mistake, commented that it was okay. After all, the girl wasn't even a real mage, and said that she didn't really like Song Fei, so it was okay. They could start again. It was at this point that Shadow used his Ghost Bells ability, then activated Soul Shock, which immobilized anyone within a radius of 100 meters for 3 seconds. That was enough to paralyze everyone, completely defenseless, and then he killed them using his instant Shadow Slash. Taking advantage of his invisibility, Shadow approached Song Fei, who didn't even notice him. Song Fei was confused, wondering what had happened so suddenly. He couldn't understand how he had been attacked if he hadn't even seen anything happening. It was then that Shadow, in the utmost silence, whispered in his ear that he was already dead. He just didn't know it yet. Song Fei tried to react by activating a magic shield, but it was no use. A poison dart hit him directly in the head, and he died slowly, suffering as the poison took effect. Shadow, observing this, commented to himself that Song Fei really did have a lot of life expectancy built up in that body. Originally, he had about 2,000 days, but after dying to him for the first time, he had lost a lot. He also realized that Song Fei's fangirls had almost no life expectancy left. This confirmed that they were transferring their exchangeable life expectancy to him. Shadow thought that After all this time, that game abandoned by its developers was just a game, but it was still frightening how he managed to brainwash his fans. Without wasting any time, Shadow decided it was time to continue farming, hunting some more monsters in the area. Back in the original city, they were reviving once again. Songfei complained that he now only had 500 days to live. He wondered why, even with the detection skill, Shadow had managed to kill them while invisible. The archer replied that she had used detection, but had only managed to locate the assassin friend who was with them. The mage explained that Shadow's stealth level was probably too high. Their detection was only at level 1, so it wasn't enough to find someone with stealth much higher than that. Songfei was desperate, saying that Shadow appeared and disappeared without a trace. He had no idea how to defend himself against it. He complained that he hadn't even provoked Shadow, and yet he had stolen the boss that was his. He tried to console himself by imagining that maybe Shadow wouldn't show up again, unless he was being chased just because he was so handsome. The girls, his fans, said they weren't going to let that happen. They were going to farm even more to protect him. Sometime later, while he was in the city, Shadow appeared again. He noticed that Songfei's group had disappeared and wondered if they had left the game or gone to another town. Walking through the square, he appeared out of nowhere next to a player, coming out of stealth and scaring the boy. He asked him directly if he knew where Songfei was. The player replied that he did, that he had gone in that direction, and even asked him if he was going to kill him to spare his girlfriend who was in his group. Shadow, without much interest, replied that it would be easier to find a new girlfriend. He thought that his girlfriend was probably the same cross-eyed archer who had tried to detect him earlier. The guy even commented that it had taken him a long time to get a girlfriend, but before he could finish, Shadow disappeared, leaving him talking to himself. Shadow knew more or less the direction they had gone, but he didn't have the exact destination. Searching blindly would be a waste of time, so he thought that if he could find Gu Yixue, he could sort it out. And as if the universe had heard, she appeared right in front of him, saying Gue. He approached her and bluntly asked if that pretty girl could help him. When she realized who it was, Gu Yixue was surprised and recognized that it was Shadow himself. He commented that he had heard that her ability allowed her to search for people in a large area and said that he wanted to find Songfei, offering a gold tier staff in exchange. Gu Yixue became suspicious, asking how he knew about her large area search since she didn't usually tell many people about this ability. Shadow told her not to worry about it and asked if she would help or not. Without much thought, she accepted immediately. The deal was done. The transaction was a success, and she was left drooling over the golden staff she had received. Shadow, impatient, hurried her along, saying that he didn't have all day. Gu Yixue, somewhat at a loss to understand, realized that even though it was the first time she had met Shadow, he felt strangely familiar. She even asked him if he wasn't afraid that she would just take the staff and leave the game. Shadow replied by asking if she didn't hate Songfei too. This surprised her, and she wanted to know how he knew that. She even asked if they were friends in real life, since his voice sounded a little familiar. Shadow, maintaining the mystery, only replied by asking if she wanted to hazard a guess. Soon after, Gu Yixue activated his ability, sending his owl to search. From the owl's view, it flew over the barren fields until it managed to locate Songfei. She told him the coordinates were 386-9527, but warned him that they wouldn't be there for long. Shadow asked her to add him as a friend and to update their location constantly. She explained that her ability didn't last that long, but he replied that it would be quick. A short while later, Shadow was approaching the location of the coordinates. Gu Yixue, who was still with him, asked why he had stopped at that particular point. He asked her to take a good look and said that there were other trees exactly like the one they were in. She confirmed that there were, in fact, there were 3 in total. It was then that Shadow leaned against one of the trees, exactly where there was a kind of carved seal. Gu Yixue, curious, asked what that symbol was. Shadow, maintaining the atmosphere of mystery, told her she could try to guess. As soon as he touched the 3 seals on the trees, a tiered jade chest appeared in front of them. Shadow was surprised, saying that he never thought he would find a blessing from one of the gods in the original village. He thought it was absurdly lucky, since it even generated a treasure chest for him. He explained that the blessings of the ancient gods can appear anywhere in the god-forsaken lands. Basically, certain areas have strange symbols. If someone activates all of them, they unlock a blessing. Some of these blessings summon monster bosses, others generate hordes of weaker monsters, but they can also generate treasure chests, or even unique rewards. Gu Yixue was shocked and said that this was insane, because that chest should be worth at least 10,000 days of life expectancy. Shadow thought that this estimate wasn't wrong. In his past life, the exchange rate for negotiable lifespans was 1 to 10,000. Only now, on the second day, that rate was already going from 1 to over 50,000. Meanwhile, Gu Yixue was trying to memorize the symbols he had just touched, in the hope of getting a blessing for her later. Soon after, Shadow managed to obtain the skill called Jade-Level Fluorescent Curse, which was in the Universal Skill Book. When he used this skill on the corpse of a player who had been dead for less than 15 seconds, it would cause a cursed flower to bloom on the body. This flower would continuously drain drain the target's negotiable life expectancy until it was completely zeroed out. Shadow remembered that he had heard of this ability in his past life. He knew that it was extremely stolen, he just didn't know that it was called Fluorescent Curse. Without thinking twice, he learned this skill. He thought that from now on, every time he killed a player, all he had to do was wait for the corpse on the ground to suck all the negotiable life expectancy out of him. So he decided that Songfei's glory days would end now. He was determined to hunt him down until he logged out of the game. After that, he would run straight to level 10, extract all his skills for real life, and kill him for good. Meanwhile, Songfei and his group were busy defeating various monsters to farm. Songfei believed that Shadow didn't even know where he was now. Even though he'd been killed twice and had his boss stolen, he thought that should be enough, and that Shadow wouldn't follow him there. But he made it clear to himself that when he reached the highest level, he would settle the score with that bastard. In the middle of the hunt, one of the sisters spotted a group facing a boss, and Songfei wondered if they weren't Shadow fans. The sisters immediately became angry and decided that they were going to kill them all. Without a second thought, they ran up to the group and started attacking. The people who were facing the boss thought they were reinforcements, but realized too late that they weren't. Instead of helping, they started attacking. Instead of helping, they began to massacre everyone. The first, a chubby girl, crushed the skull of one of the players, while the others asked in fright what they were doing and if they were crazy. She replied that this was the fate of Shadow fans. One of the players didn't even understand what was going on. She had no idea who Shadow was, but she was still killed by a shower of arrows launched by the slimy girl in the group, who shouted that it was all for Songfei. The carnage was so great that even the boss was afraid. The group of humans was being completely exterminated, and even the boss was trembling before them. Everything in sight was mercilessly destroyed, leaving blood everywhere. In the midst of all this, Songfei thanked his beloved family with emotion, saying that he had almost been killed by those cruel players, but thanks to them he was safe. The sisters replied that he didn't need to thank them. Only while they were celebrating, Shadow was already preparing to do what he did best: murder. In the blink of an eye, he whispered in Songfei's ear that he was already dead, and without giving him a chance to react, cut off his head. The little sisters had no time to do anything. Shadow then used the Fluorescent Curse, creating a large red flower on Songfei's body, which began to drain his life expectancy. The frightened fans wondered what the hell that was all about. Shortly afterwards, when Songfei came back to town, he was indignant and thought that Shadow had to be crazy. He concluded that he must have been jealous because he lived surrounded by women, and the other guy didn't. Even so, he didn't stop cursing. Even so, he didn't stop cursing his own fans, calling them completely useless. Then he realized something very strange. The system was counting his life expectancy, which was falling by the second. He was confused because before it had been 400, but now it was decreasing rapidly. He wondered if this was a penalty for dying too much. Soon the sisters appeared at his side, also dead, and realized that something was very wrong. They said that Shadow had used a strange ability that made a flower appear on his body, and it seemed to be sucking something out of him. Songfei instantly realized that this was exactly what was draining his life expectancy. He thought in despair that that damned Shadow was really trying to kill him. His life expectancy now stood at 330, and without a second thought, he decided that he had to leave the game immediately. Songfei told his family that they all needed to log out of the game immediately, because if they stayed online, they could end up being drained as well. But even disconnecting, he didn't think it would end that way. He was determined to put an end to Shadow. He believed that after training for so long to get there, it didn't make sense to accept that he couldn't crush Shadow using the money he had. Meanwhile, Shadow was quiet in his garden of red spider lilies. The place looked like a real body fest, full of corpses strewn about. The system then notified him that due to his excessive killing of players, he had become a level 4 assassin. Now, any death would cause him to lose 96% of his current life expectancy. Even so, he was pleased because he had managed to accumulate another 1,000 days of negotiable life expectancy. He also noticed that Songfei's group had indeed farmed a lot, but the life absorption had stopped, indicating that they had probably disconnected from the game. Meanwhile, Yu's owl, who was monitoring everything, was watching carefully and thought that this was the legendary Shadow, the top 1 player, completely terrifying. Shadow asked her if Songfei had left the game, and she confirmed that he and all his fans had. Shadow replied that it was fine, but asked to be notified immediately if any of them logged back in. Soon after, Gu Yixue suggested that they could leave, but Shadow replied that he still had a sword of sacred judgment there and asked if she didn't want it. Gu Yixue, of course, replied that she did. So Shadow asked her to wait for him in the city. Later, he suddenly appeared there, even giving her a fright. He said that he had a skill book that was worth around 500 days of life expectancy, but that he would sell it to her for half the price, as long as she accepted one condition. Gu Yixue, suspicious, replied on the spot that she wouldn't sell her own body. Shadow, not quite understanding where she was getting that from, explained that it was nothing of the sort. All he wanted was for her to join a team for a certain period of time. Gu Yixue accepted, but warned that the group couldn't be weak. Shadow replied that that she didn't need to worry about that because she was going to contact everyone right now. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a group was facing a boss and managed to defeat the monster, but the captain ended up getting poisoned. Desperate, he asked Xiao Yu to use the poison cleansing skill on him quickly. Xiao Yu, a little lost, asked if she was really supposed to use it. The captain confirmed it, pointing out that every priest had this ability. She answered yes, found the skill, and asked everyone to watch. But when she used it, she missed her target and ended up hitting a tree instead of the captain. She apologized, but it was too late. The captain died of poisoning. When they all returned to the city, the captain was indignant. He thought they had put a healer in the group, but it wasn't working. He wondered if she wasn't from a hidden class, and even so, how she could be so bad. She concluded that the really good healers were probably already busy in other groups. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu thought that reaching level 4 had been easy, and now she could finally find her brother Song Fei. At that moment, Shadow contacted Wang Meng, the captain of that group. He said he had a friend who was a priestess of the White Eagle, a hidden and very powerful class, and asked if he would like her to join the team. Wang Meng said that if Shadow himself was recommending it, then he believed it. He said that of course he would accept the new member. Shadow replied that she was in Labarita City, and as there were few people farming there, it would be very easy for them. Wang Meng commented that they were about to change locations because that city was getting too crowded. He then approached Xiao Yu, telling her that they were going to a much higher level city and that it would be too dangerous for someone of her level, so they weren't going to take her. But Xiao Yu replied that she knew how to turn around. Even so, Wang Meng and his group ran off, leaving her behind. Xiao Yu was disgusted, thinking that that bunch of idiots knew they were abandoning her, but they still made up excuses. She also thought that she had had enough of them and decided that she would go and find Shadow, because she knew that he could carry her through the game. Soon afterwards, Wang Meng arrived in Labareda City. At that moment, he was settling the debt he owed Shadow, and told him that Captain Enyu would show up later to pay the rest. Shadow wondered if that Enyu was the same person he knew, but replied that it was all right. He then introduced Gu Yixue and said that this was her new captain, Wang Meng. Suddenly, someone came screaming out, and, of course, it was Enyu herself, who was dressed very strangely, in an outfit that was half armor and half almost naked. Shadow wondered if that was really the Enyu he knew. He remembered that her title was Execution of Justice, a hidden and unique class. She was a draconic knight, and in his past life, she was part of one of the 20 major global powers. She was also one of the pillars of the official forces of the Grand Xiao, responsible for fighting hostile foreign factions. Enyu was very excited to meet Shadow, saying that she was a big fan of his and had always admired him very much. But Shadow answered simply with a hello. He thought that this was the first time he had met someone who, in his past life, had beaten him at the god-forsaken game. Enyu said she was impressed by the speed at which he was leveling up, and even joked, asking if he wasn't a time traveler or someone who knew about the future. Deep down, she was right, but Shadow wouldn't admit it. Shadow wondered because in his past life, he remembered that this woman was not part of Wang Meng's team. Soon afterwards, Enyu settled her debt with him, paying for 500 days of life expectancy. Shadow realized that she had actually accumulated quite a lot of life expectancy. He knew that the Draconic Knights had a high capacity for survival, and that the authorities felt safe storing life expectancy with her. Enyu then said that if he had any equipment to sell in the future, they could buy it all. She also commented that the entire life expectancy of the city of Shanghai was concentrated in her, and asked a little suspiciously if he wasn't going to kill her. Shadow replied that, of course, he wouldn't do that. He said that what he wanted was mutual cooperation, where they would both help each other. And Yu replied that she knew he was very intelligent. Shadow thought that with every sentence she said, it sounded like an explosion of feelings, just as the rumors said. She acted innocent, but was actually as sharp as a blade. Being by her side would be a great advantage, and would save a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, in the real world, some girls were completely desperate when they realized that life expectancy in the game directly affected life expectancy in real life. In other words, if they reset their game, they would die in real life. The little squirrel, terrified, asked if it wasn't just a game. She said that she had given her entire life expectancy to her brother Song Fei, and now had almost nothing left. The other was crying because she realized that she also had very little left. One of them revealed that because she had killed many players, she had acquired the status of assassin. Now, if she died, she would lose twice her life expectancy. The other was indignant, not understanding how she had lost so much if she hadn't even died that much. The fat girl explained that, as she was always on the front line, she had died several times. Now she only had 1 day of life left, but she still insisted that if she died in the game, she wouldn't die in real life. She didn't want to believe it. It was then that they saw a news report that Song Fei was buying life expectancy. Right away, she decided that she would go there, because he would surely help her. She said she would put on her best clothes to meet her beloved Song Fei, so she put on her fan outfit, which even had his face printed on on it, something completely ridiculous, and ran off determined to help him. Meanwhile, at Qin Feng and Qin Xiaoyu's house, Xiaoyu was waking up, leaving the game. She thought she was now back in reality, but she realized that she couldn't even tell what was reality and what was a game. Xiaoyu realized that the exchange rate for a day's life expectancy was currently 15,000 in real life. Looking at her balance of 200 days, she realized that if she wanted to, she could become a millionaire. But suddenly she saw a piece of news that made her desperate. Shadow was massacring Song Fei, and he had already been killed 3 times by him. Immediately, she began to cry, trembling with worry for her brother Song Fei. Soon afterwards, another piece of news appeared confirming that lifespan in the game directly affected lifespan in real life. She was shocked to realize that Song Fei probably had only 12 days left. Desperate, she wondered why Shadow was killing him so often and how he could be so powerful. Then she saw a message on Song Fei's worship group. There, they were all commenting that he was doing a life expectancy sale at Dang Plaza, where he was paying 10,000 for each day. They were all excited, saying that they could become rich with this opportunity. And of course, Xiao Yu, in her clumsy way, ran off to go there. Meanwhile, Shadow was farming an absurd number of monsters in one go. He had finally reached level 10. By leveling up, he gained 2 attributes from the 4th dimension, 5 free attribute points to distribute and unlock career advancement. The system announced that he was the first player to reach level 10, which earned him 7 reputation points in Shanghai, 14 points in the country of Xia, and 21 points globally, adding up to 42 reputation points in total. He also unlocked the teleport function to the abandoned continent of the gods. This global announcement had a huge impact. Everyone commented that, once again, it was Shadow. They said that he was always first in everything and that there was no explanation. With more than 1.5 billion people playing, no one could overtake him. Everyone wondered how it was possible for someone to be so far ahead of everyone else. Soon after, Shadow consumed 13 evolution points, resetting his bar. His backstab skill, which was platinum grade, evolved to emerald, increasing its damage by 50%. However, he realized that he still only had 7,000 days of exchangeable life expectancy, which wasn't enough for his next plans. He knew that in order to leave the starting city, he needed to gather 7 level 10 players to open the teleport function. But currently, apart from him, the highest was level 8, so he understood that he would have to wait a little longer, which would actually be a good thing, as he still had things to sort out. It was at that moment that he woke up in reality, no longer being Shadow, but Qin Feng again. The system asked him if he wanted to use up his exchangeable life expectancy in the real world, and he said yes. He first used 1,000 days to extract his class. In this way, he brought the Shadow class into real life, which increased his strength by 3 points, his constitution by 3, his agility by 8, and his spirit by 5. He then used another 1,000 days to extract 2 levels, becoming a level 3 human in reality. This increased his strength by 4 points, his constitution by 4, his spirit by 4, and his agility by 14. Qin Feng realized that, according to the logic of the system, the higher the degree of the skill, the more life expectancy it would take to extract. However, he was surprised to discover that the calculation was based on the initial level of the skill, not the evolved level. This was a great relief. Its main skill cost just 900 days to extract. The skill came synchronized with the game and was platinum grade. He was pleased, finding it comforting. Soon after, he consumed another 900 days to extract the Shadow skill, which granted him practically absolute stealth, and he used another 2,262 days to extract the Poison Dart, an extremely lethal skill. In the end, Qin Feng was left with 1,292 days of life expectancy remaining, which, for the time being, wasn't enough to extract any more skills. Even so, he considered that extracting his class and a platinum-grade skill was already an excellent deal. Now Qin Feng was practically a superhuman. His agility had reached 32 points, something far beyond human limits. With unlimited invisibility and poison darts that could be launched from 14 meters away, he knew he could finish Song Fei off like it was nothing. He realized that Song Fei was buying life wildly, probably planning to finish him off in the game. Song Fei was in Dajiang Plaza, about 7 or 8 kilometers away. At his current walking speed, it would take him about 10 minutes to get there. Just then, he received a message from his company's supervisor, an extremely arrogant guy, who asked him if he had lost his mind, since he wasn't even answering his phone anymore. The supervisor told him to call back immediately, but Qin Feng simply ignored it. He threw his cell phone away and activated his stealth mode, thinking that people would soon find out what the godforsaken game really was. Meanwhile, in the plaza, Song Fei was surrounded by fans screaming for him, and of course the idiot Xiao Yu was one of them. He was sitting on his throne, accompanied by another woman. She commented that she had heard that he had been killed 3 times in the game by Shadow, but asked him not to worry, as they would soon discover this Shadow's real identity. Song Fei asked what they had found out so far, and she replied that they had already sent someone to Yinghuo City to approach him. They offered him a sum of of money that no one would refuse, and all they had to do was wait for him to come back to reality and then capture him. Once he was captured, Song Fei could teach him a good lesson. Song Fei commented that they should have done this before, as he had heard that Zhang Industries used this same method to control several players and make them work for free. The woman said that these people are such useless idiots that they can't even live any longer. In her view, Song Fei was in a much better situation, surrounded by girls who were even willing to die for him. And indeed, some of them were about to. Suddenly, a guy from the audience stood up and shouted for no one to sell more life to Song Fei. He asked if no one had seen the official announcement, saying that if someone's life reached 0 in-game, they would die in real life. He accused Song Fei of killing people just to stay alive. Hearing this, Song Fei thought it was about time someone came to cause trouble with him. So he took the microphone, stood up, and told everyone there that he was the great star Song Fei. He said that he had noticed the debates going on and was sorry that his acquisition of lifetime in the game had ended up taking up some public social resources and causing trouble. He apologized for this. His fans immediately shouted that he didn't need to apologize, that he hadn't done anything wrong. Song Fei then continued his speech, saying that he was very grateful for everyone's support and affection. At the same time, he sincerely asked that this love become something positive and uplifting for everyone. He said that during this special period of the God-forsaken game, as long as they could protect themselves, everyone should work fairly and unitedly. He said that even though the whole nation was affected by gambling, he was also actively cooperating with the authorities and putting in a lot of effort. He said that even though he was just an idol, he wanted to do the right thing. Immediately, they all started crying, saying that they would always support him. Of course, in the end, he made all those Catarl fans cry for him. They started swearing at the guy who had criticized him, calling him a savage and telling him to get out of there. That's when the fat girl got up on stage and started shouting for no one to listen to the nonsense they were saying about Song Fei. She asked how they dared to question him. She said that these people believed any lie and any fake news. Song Fei, looking at her, wondered when she had taken the stage, and she replied without hesitation that she would happily sacrifice herself for him. He said that even when he disconnected and saw that his life had dwindled to less than a day, he was still there, steadfast. Everyone started shouting that they loved him, and Song Fei replied that he loved them too. He said that he was especially grateful for the fat girl next to him. She replied that it didn't matter, even if she died, as long as she had the affection and love of her idol. Just as Song Fei was about to say something else, his head was pierced. Everyone was in complete shock. Unable to say a word, they could only stare at Song Fei's body, which had half its head ripped off and simply fell dead on the stage. The fans started screaming, completely panicking, desperate, unable to believe what they were seeing. Song Fei was dead. The security guards tried to get the young master out of there, while the blonde ran desperately, thinking she had to get out of there immediately. She clearly remembered seeing a sphere of light at the exact moment Song Fei died. She thought that the ball of light that came out of his body was caught by someone, probably a person who was invisible. In her mind, it could only be someone from the game, but she wondered if the abilities could even be used in real life. She concluded that for someone to kill him instantly like that, it could only be one person. However, just as she was about to say that out loud, his head was split in half. The security guards could barely see who did it, but it was obvious that it was Qin Feng, or rather Shadow, who had done it. By the end of the day, it was all being reported in the media. The celebrity Song Fei had died tragically in Dajiang Plaza, and Zhu Fei, an extreme fan, had ended up sacrificing her own life next to his body. Police investigations began immediately, and on analyzing the facts, came to the conclusion that the cause of death appeared to be supernatural. Meanwhile, inside a car, Xiaoyu was crying without believing what had just happened. She had been there. She had seen everything. She had witnessed the very moment he died. She watched helplessly as her idol died. Her friend, who was standing next to her, commented that that kind of attack, using blades or darts, was something from the God-forsaken game. She asked if Xiaoyu believed that someone had really murdered Song Fei. She said that she had even heard that he had been killed 3 times in the game, and that perhaps skills from the game could actually be used in the real world. Xiaoyu thought that made a lot of sense. After all, Shadow had already killed Song Fei several times in the game, and if anyone was going to be able to do that in real life, it would be him. Someone who attacks with knives, darts, and stealth. Xiaoyu was devastated. In her mind, her world was now without light. His idol had been killed by Shadow, and somehow he had managed to bring the game's abilities into real life. She then thought that nothing else mattered. From that moment on, she only had one goal. She was going to get stronger no matter what, and she was going to kill Shadow. Avenging Song Fei was now the only thing that mattered in her life. While all this was going on, Qin Feng was quiet quietly eating some ramen. After all, even an invincible guy like him, both in real life and in the game, needed energy. Using skills takes a lot out of his body, so he needed to eat. Just then, he started to receive more messages from work, threatening to cut his salary, give him a warning, and a lot of other things that he didn't even care about anymore. He looked at his cell phone and thought that the person sending those messages was Yang Shaya, a woman who has a good personality, but is very weak and was constantly bullied. In his previous life, she had even been part of the God Killer Guild. Qin Feng told her not to stress because it wouldn't work with him. He told her to join in the game too and make an effort together. Yang was surprised and asked if he was really playing that game. He said he'd heard that it was extremely difficult and that people were even losing time in their real lives because of it. He said it was very scary. Qin Feng only replied that no matter what class she chose, she had to invest everything in agility at the start, without exception. Yang commented that she had heard that in-game life force was absurdly expensive in real life. She asked if he was farming and how much he had already earned. Qin Feng replied that, in fact, not much. Almost all the money he made, he had already spent. Yang commented, a little shocked, that at this rate he even looked like he'd bought a house. She said she now understood why he was blocking everyone from work. Qin Feng then thought to hell with that idiot boss. In fact, it was a boss. Shishi, the daughter of the CEO of the Qian Group, the company where he used to work, was owned by this group. And this girl, Shishi, did absolutely nothing but pick on and cause trouble for all the men below her. Shishi was doing absurd things like going into hotels with 6 different men, driving sports cars with 3 others, and now, to make matters worse, she was even after Qin Feng. He thought, if her name is Shishi, there's no way she's going to have to say Shishi anyway, so what? Qin Feng knew very well that she was someone who loved to flatter foreigners. In his past life, just after the game became really popular, she moved to North America to fulfill her dream of being part of the Alice in Wonderland Association. She was so focused on this that she caused countless problems for everyone, especially the guild he was in, the Slayers of Gods. Qin Feng thought that he needed to get rid of her before she left the country, because once she went to North America, he would have no way of dealing with her. If Shishi dies now, the Alice in Wonderland Association will never be created. And there are rumors that many of the founders were having an affair with her. As soon as she dies, those founders will cancel the project. It was then that he received a call from Xiao Yu. He answered and just said hi. Xiao Yu answered saying that she thought he had died. Without paying much attention, he heard her say that since he was alive, she wanted to let him know that she had found enough money to buy a house and that from now on he should never bother her again. Qin Feng simply asked, okay, so what? Xiao Yu then said that she wouldn't tell him where she lived and wouldn't bother talking to him anymore. Qin Feng replied that fine, if there was nothing else to talk about, he'd hang up. And that's exactly what he did. He hung up on her without caring. Qin Feng thought he would go home and continue to focus on leveling up. It wouldn't be long before people reached level 10, and when they did, everyone would discover that abilities could be brought to reality. From then on, the world would have no more peace. In the game, Xiao Yu's friend asked her if she had really cut ties with her brother. He said she could simply apologize, but Xiao Yu said no way. She said that she had sold her life expectancy to the Qian Group for 2 million, and that she now had enough money to buy a house where she and Shuyan, her friend, could live together. She also said that she would soon be connecting with Shadow. It was at that moment that a guy approached Xiao Yu, saying that she had a skill book, didn't she? He said he'd heard that she'd promised that book, and Xiao Yu confirmed that yes, when it was all over, she would pay him back. But inside, she thought that once she was by Shadow's side, she wouldn't even have to deal with little shits like that guy anymore. She was already offering her book on assassin's skills, trying to get someone's attention. In her mind, this guy who had paid for that book was just a really good hustler. She thought that skill book might bring her closer to Shadow. She imagined that soon she would be by his side, silently healing, helping to kill enemies, leveling up with him, and thus making him trust her. And when he finally trusted her completely, she would personally kill him and gouge his eyes out. She swore that she would avenge Song Fei, whatever the cost. But at that very moment, she received a message back. It was Shadow, saying that this skill was crap and that she could have it. He simply refused without a second thought. Meanwhile, even before this happened, Shadow was in the field, farming peacefully, until someone shouted at him to get out of the way. He realized that he was approaching a battle against a gigantic boss. It was a huge red creature with arms and legs. The people who were fighting it had all been beaten and killed. Shadow saw it and recognized it instantly. It was a gold rank arthropod, a level 8 boss. He thought that was quite interesting. He remembered that this boss had a level 2 anti-stealth ability, which meant that his invisibility would be completely useless against it. The creature had already spotted Shadow even from a distance, but without hesitation he charged at it, using his Shadow instant slash, dealing absurd damage right away. 2 of the blows were critical. Shadow thought that even without being invisible, attacking outside the enemy's field of vision still caused his passives to be activated, but if he couldn't remain invisible for the rest of the fight, his damage would drop considerably. Fortunately, thanks to the legendary skill Divine Salvation, he managed to hit the boss's weak points, such as the head and heart, increasing his damage by 200%. Of the the 9 slashes he applied, 3 hit directly on the weak points, causing triple and critical damage. This directly compensated for the damage he would have lost due to his lack of stealth. He thought he owed it to his little friend to give him this legendary ability. Meanwhile, half hidden, that same mage from the beginning was there, watching what he was doing, just observing. But Shadow was totally focused on the fight. His dark slash reduced a third of the boss's life, and then he threw another poison dart, but realized that this damage wasn't as effective. He thought he still needed to level up his class to become even more powerful and achieve such high stealth that even bosses like that couldn't detect him. The boss tried to hit him several times. Shadow was almost hit, and the mage even shouted, trying to warn him. But he already knew exactly what he was doing. He dodged the arthropod's numerous quick blows with precision. People watching wondered how he was so fast. They even commented that he seemed to know the boss's entire attack pattern, as if he had fought it countless times before. Shadow thought that no matter how many times he had tried in his past life, he simply couldn't defeat that boss. He understood that this boss wasn't someone you could defeat with brute force, but by feeling his rhythm and reading his movements. That's why he was considered one of the most powerful assassins in the world. The damage he caused was so absurd that he even ripped the monster's jaw off, leaving it with very little life left. Shadow thought that, compared to bosses who have attacks that are impossible to dodge, like the boatman, this was a piece of cake. The mage even wondered if the boss was already dying. Then in the next moment, Shadow prepared his poison dart and ripped off the golden arthropod's head. The system reported that he had killed the level 8 golden arthropod and gained 6,400 experience points, 7 evolution points, and 497 days of exchangeable life expectancy. In addition, with his greedy hand skill, he gained another 21 evolution points and another 497 days of life expectancy. He thought that this boss alone had given him a total of 28 evolution points and almost 2,000 days, as well as a skill book. The skill was Shield of Black Light, a platinum tier assassin skill. Its effect converted the user's entire dodge rate into a shield that made them immune to damage for 8 seconds. The recharge time was 1 minute, and for every 20% dodge, the user gained a layer of shield immune to damage. However, the shield could be broken. Shadow realized that if he took this skill now, he would have a shield immune to damage with 3 layers, since his dodge rate was at 75%. Without thinking twice, he used up his evolution points and upgraded the skill directly to the epic tier. The total duration of the shield increased to 22 seconds, and the conversion rate went from 20% to 10%. In other words, he now had a shield with 7 layers of damage immunity. With this, he could start exploring much higher level areas. And even after these improvements, he still had 22 evolution points left over. So Shadow decided to invest in the damage of his poison dart. It could now hit a target 17 meters away, adding an extra 240 damage for the distance traveled. The poison's damage went up from 50% to 80% damage per second, and the duration stayed at 5 seconds. He thought that the poison dart was one of the best skills for him to level up, as it only had a 5-second cooldown, allowing him to inflict infinite poison on his enemies. In addition, he got new equipment for assassins: the Aura of Lightness, which gave 20 more agility and 20% more movement speed, and the Crimson Leather Gloves, which offered 18 more physical defense, 15 more resistance to all elements, 12 more constitution, and 588 more life points. He realized that he now had 2 pieces of the Crimson set, which increased his fire damage by 55%, as well as offering 51 more damage, 106 more physical damage, and 1,517 more hit points, all just for completing the set. Shadow was pleased, thinking that his attributes were now high enough to keep pace with his attacks. With the Shield of Blacklight, his survival was on another level. That's when Rosa of the Mist approached and commented that he had soloed a boss. She asked if he had any skill books to sell. She saw a golden skill book for mages called Ice Ejection, a group skill that launched a ball of ice that bounced up to 10 times. The price was 800 days of life expectancy. One person complained that it was too expensive, that he had seen someone selling it for much less, but Shadow explained that it was an ice skill, level 7. When upgraded to level S, it increased the damage by another 40%. So 800 days was a bargain. Without much thought, Rosa da Neblina bought the skill. They even waved goodbye to Shadow, treating him as if he were an idol, but at the same time being very afraid of him. Shadow then set off, thinking that first he would spread some news in the city. Then he would gather more information about the location of the next boss he wanted to hunt. That way, he would have an endless supply of bosses and his development speed would be maximized. That way, he would always be 10 steps ahead of anyone else. It was at that moment that Wang Meng sent Shadow a message, telling him that earlier Xiao Yu had said that she had a skill book. Shadow immediately thought that it must be a bronze-level skill, completely useless. In his mind, it was obvious that Xiao Yu was only trying to get close to him to kill him too, since he had just killed Song Fei. So he replied to Wang Meng that she could just throw it in the garbage can. In truth, Shadow still wasn't sure whether Xiao Yu wanted to impress him or take revenge. While he was thinking about it, Xiao Yu received his message calling her skill a complete piece of crap. Shortly afterwards, Shadow commented to Wang Meng that he had some great equipment to sell, but Meng wanted to know something else first. He asked directly if Song Fei's death had been his fault. Bluntly, Shadow confirmed that yes, he had killed Song Fei himself. Shadow thought that Wang Meng was on Song Fei's friends list, so he could clearly see the exact moment when Song Fei went offline. And that time exactly matched the time of the murder, so it was impossible for him not to know what had happened. He realized that since Wang Meng was asking, it meant that the authorities had already deduced most of what had happened. That's why Shadow wondered what that question was about. Was he trying to trap him? He then thought that in about 2 hours' time, other players would also reach level 10, and the fact that skills could be extracted for real life would no longer be a secret. This made it the perfect time to test how the authorities would react, practically forcing the start of an investigation. Later, Shadow met up with Wang Meng's group, and Anyu asked him if it really was him who had killed Song Fei. He confirmed it without hesitation, saying that yes, it was him. Anyu replied that, to be quite honest, during the investigation she had conducted, he was already the main suspect. In fact, he had been on the list of suspects from the start. They knew very well that Song Fei was planning something against him and that Jiang Industries was kidnapping players, forcing these people to work within the game, obviously causing many casualties. Shadow thought that, at least for the time being, they still couldn't find out who he was in real life, so he intended to maintain this cooperation. In his past life, he worked closely with the authorities, always kept his name clean and was never blacklisted. But this time, he had directly killed both Song Fei and Zhang Li, and that obviously changed the course of things completely. Shadow wanted to see how his actions could change the future of the godforsaken game. He thought that this time, he could even sell his platinum-level equipment, since the government bought a lot of this type of equipment, as well as class skills and skill books. After all, the government had a lot of exchangeable life expectancy to spend. The staff were impressed with everything he'd gotten from that place. Platinum-level equipment, a platinum skill book, and they began to wonder if he had defeated a boss of that level on his own. Someone commented that he hadn't, since no global announcement was made when it happened. Shadow only replied that he had been lucky with the chests, nothing more. He even said that Yor herself saw when he opened a jade-level chest, and she confirmed it, but then questioned whether getting that many items was really just a matter of luck. Meanwhile, Shadow affectionately called Yor Little Snowflake, which made Black Plum a little jealous, since he only called her Little Blackie, just because her name was Black Plum. He asked if that nickname wasn't cute enough, and Black Plum said yes, that was fine. Yu commented that comparing themselves to others really hurt. She recalled that it took them a long time to defeat just one silver boss, and out of nowhere Shadow appears full of platinum-level equipment. Then Shadow explained the prices. The platinum skill book for an archer cost 2,500 days, a platinum weapon for a berserker, 1,500, a skill book for a mage, 3,000, and a skill book together with all the shooting equipment would cost 8,000. If they wanted everything together, he'd do it for 16,000 days, while still offering a discount. And Yu accepted the deal on the spot. Wang Meng even asked her if she was really going to settle for that price, and she replied that it was actually quite fair. This way, she had paid off everyone's debts at the same time. Shadow was pleased, thinking that she was a very decisive woman, and he liked that. He also reflected that once you've exceeded 10,000 days, the exchangeable days are converted into years. For example, 22,000 days equals 60 years, and that's around 400 million in real money. It was undoubtedly a huge investment, but the government had the power. This equipment and skill books would allow the Jiangai City government to cultivate players much more quickly, and the stronger the authorities became, the better it would be for him too, who could avoid many problems in the future, and even secure advantages on an international level. During the conversation, Anyu commented to Shadow that Jiang Industries had imprisoned many players. She said she intended to rescue them, and asked if he wanted to get involved. Shadow refused, but revealed that he had some very valuable information for her. He wondered if, at that moment, the government was also trying to recruit him, and would forget the fact that he had killed Song Fei. He then revealed his tip, confirming that it was right. On reaching level 10 in the godforsaken game, it was possible to transfer the game's powers to real life, using exchangeable life expectancy. He said that they would fully understand this as soon as the time came, and Yu realized that this was exactly why Jiang Industries was buying life expectancy in the real world. Once they too Xiaoyu reached level 10, they would strongly resist any government operation or mission. Shadow was relieved that they still didn't fully understand this, and, without saying another word, simply disappeared. Afterwards, Anyu commented to Wang Meng that their group would now split up. They were too strong, and if they stayed together, it would be a waste of damage, since they could kill many creatures with just one blow. Separately, they could level up much faster. Wang Meng agreed, as everyone's priority was to reach level 10 as soon as possible. This time, Shadow returned to the city not to sell, but to buy information. He wanted coordinates of silver and gold bosses, paying 30 days and 100 days respectively for each piece of information. That's when that ugly guy, who couldn't even remember his name, realized that Shadow was there again. The man's wife said that if he agreed to help her, she would give him 300 million in Jiang shares alone. She said that this was an opportunity that didn't come along every day, and that he should take it right away. But someone commented that that man probably hadn't even logged off yet, so he didn't even know that Shadow had killed both Songfei and his own wife in real life. He was shocked when he asked if it was true, and someone else replied that yes, it was a great loss, because that little girl was quite pretty. Then he wondered if Jiang Li really was dead. He remembered that at first, she had offered Shadow 10 million to carry her. He refused, but ended up being tempted by the money and went after her, thinking he'd make an easy buck. Only when he went to collect it in real life, they finished him off. When he woke up, he was tied up in a basement, spending days being whipped, forced to fight for them, and even having to attract more victims. He wondered if Jiang Li had really died, and thought that, in the end, she had gotten what she deserved. He used to laugh at Shadow, thinking he was silly, but in the end, the real idiot was himself. The people around him commented that he had probably kidnapped a lot of people. He swore that it was forced on him, that he had no choice. But Shadow didn't care. He thought the authorities would take care of him and do what had to be done. Soon after, someone appeared offering him boss coordinates. Meanwhile, in town, everyone was talking about a player known as the Swordswoman, who in real life was called Shishi. People said to stay away from her because she was a player killer. She killed everyone and stole days off their life expectancy. Shishi said that the game wasn't that impressive. According to her, all you had to do was spend a bit of money, buy equipment and skills, and off you went, killing everyone. But she was extremely angry because this damned game had made her miss her flight. She should be in North America right now, enjoying life, but she was stuck here, unable to leave the country, surrounded by bugs inside this game. She then told Tony that she found his men much more charming. Tony replied that she had good taste, that they were naturally superior to the men in this place, and even commented that she could try them later if she wanted to. The situation was already getting very awkward, but Shishi continued, saying that she'd heard that useless Songfei had died. She said that she had even played with him once, but that he died quickly, calling him a piece of trash. She had been told that he had been killed by Shadow, who was now considered the most powerful player of all. She thought that if Shadow killed Songfei, then eliminating any other ordinary player would be child's play for him, and she really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. Shishi then logged out of the game and ordered his men to find Shadow anyway. She believed that perhaps money wouldn't be enough for him, but an offer of 3,000 days might convince him. She imagined that, with that, he could snap his fingers and kill anyone she told him to, and she would never forget his face when he rejected her in the past. The problem was that she had no idea that the Qin Feng she wanted dead and Shadow himself were the same person. Meanwhile, one group was defeating several creatures at once, and who was now part of that group was Xiaoyu, who had been kicked out of the previous group, but at least was now helping out as support, healing. One of the players complained that the next time she healed him, she should put a little more life into him because he had almost died. Xiaoyu responded by asking why he was complaining, since he hadn't even died. She then said she was hungry and logged off, along with her friend Xuan, who was also in the same group. The two of them were kind of working together. The guy went on to say that Xiaoyu was now a bit of a mess, and that when he had the chance, he was going to break up with her. Only when she logged off, she realized that her new apartment was a complete mess. She was starving, but the delivery apps were full because practically everyone was into this damn game. She thought that X always cooked for her, and she never had to lift a finger to do anything. But now she had to forget about it. She was free of him. She was strong, she was the best, and she could do it on her own. She also thought she needed to get rid of her brother once and for all. Meanwhile, in a cave on the beach, a huge crab was trying to escape, but was easily split in half by Shadow. He commented that he had killed 4 silver-level bosses in just 1 hour and thought that was a great result. Each kill gave him 16 evolution points, and by adding up all the loot, he got another 3,500 days of exchangeable life expectancy. His equipment was now completely gold tier, or even higher. The recharge time reduction jumped from 55% to 75%, 100%, and the recharge time of Shadow Instant Cut dropped from 12 seconds to 6.8. Even so, there were no platinum bosses near the city, so gold level equipment was still the limit for the time being. The only way to advance now was to move up a class. All future platinum bosses had at least level 2 stealth detection, so he needed to evolve quickly to get level 3 stealth. He still lacked 20,000 experience. Only with stealth level 3 could he remain completely invisible in front of the platinum bosses. In his past life, it took 20 people to kill a platinum boss, but this time he planned to do it alone. So he decided to return to the city and sell all his equipment to the government. The plan was to stay 10 steps ahead of everyone and become the first to defeat a platinum boss on his own. Later, back in the city, Shadow had an incredible 105 years of exchangeable life expectancy. Several people were watching him, wanting to sell equipment too. But Shadow knew that he had almost 40,000 days of accumulated life expectancy, which was simply excellent. It was then that a man approached him, asking if he was Shadow and saying that he had an offer to kill him in real life. The reward was very good, but Shadow just ignored him at first. Only the guy insisted and revealed that the target was a certain Qin Feng, saying that if Shadow had already killed Song Fei, that would be easy money for him. Right away, Shadow thought, they killed Qin Feng? He wondered if this guy's head was really worth that much money. The man replied that the payment would be 3,000 days, which would be around 50 million in real money. Shadow reflected, wondering who wanted him dead for that kind of money. Probably someone he hadn't met yet in this life. And he realized that the man making the offer was probably just a messenger, not the person who wanted him dead. He thought it was too early to be creating unnecessary enemies, especially within the game, because that left only one possibility. There was only one person who would have enough motive and motivation to want to kill him, Shishi. Only she would be able to order Qin Feng's death. But then he reflected that if she had wanted to kill him before the game, she would have done so already. So there was another reason. She probably wanted to get involved with him inside the game. As for wanting to kill Qin Feng, it was clearly because he had rejected her several times. Ironically, she ended up hiring him herself, since Qin Feng and Shadow are the same person. Shadow accepted the proposal, but demanded half of the payment up front. He also said that the execution time and how it would be done was his problem. The man replied that he needed a permit, got it, and then transferred 1,500 days to Shadow. He thought that this was an excellent investment and that he would soon be going after Shishi himself. The man then passed on the target's details, in this case Qin Feng, along with his address. Shadow immediately realized that this was indeed the address where he lived. They even knew that. He then replied that it was fine. He would let them know as soon as he had results. The man thought that this Shadow guy was very arrogant, full of himself, but after all, he was working for the same woman as him. That's when a woman came up to talk to Shadow. She said she had heard that he was buying gold tier boss coordinates. She said she had one. Shadow replied that he would only pay if the information was confirmed. She asked him to follow her, as it was north of the city. Shadow asked which boss it was, and she replied that it was the Plague Bearer. Right away, Shadow realized that she knew the name, so it seemed that she had indeed found a gold tier boss. She asked him if he didn't need a healer, since that boss had area poison, but Shadow refused, saying that he just needed her to guide him there. He thought that one of the items that boss could drop was the poison ring, which drained HP per second from anyone within range. He also knew that in order to deal with that boss, it was essential to kill it quickly. Arriving at the agreed location, Shadow saw that it was a cave where the boss was hiding. The woman explained that her team had already defeated all the smaller monsters inside the cave until they reached the deepest part, where the real challenge was. The environment there looked like a swamp completely contaminated by a deadly mist that could kill any creature that breathed it in. Seeing that, Shadow paid the woman the agreed amount, equivalent to 100 days of negotiable lifespan. He reflected that, according to the game rules, he might be able to avoid the poison using his high dodge rate, which reached 75%. He believed that would make things easier. But the woman revealed something important. She warned that the place was actually a trap set for him. As soon as he started fighting the boss, several people would appear to kill him. She knew they had level 2 anti-stealth items, which made things even more complicated. She said she had been sent to kill him, to lure him there, gain his trust, and find out who he was in real life. She confessed she did not want to do it. She said the people behind the trap were threatening her in real life and asked Shadow to eliminate them too. She explained that the mastermind was Dongfeng Xian, whom Shadow had already killed before. He found that revelation strange and remembered Dongfeng as someone who had tried to steal a boss from him in the past, but ended up giving him a skill book as an apology. The woman insisted that if Shadow had really killed Song Fei in the past, he could also defeat Dongfeng. For her, if Dongfeng were eliminated, her life would be safer. Shadow thought the plan was a bit childish and considered that in his past life he had never even heard of that man, maybe because someone else had already eliminated him. Even so, he told himself he might consider killing Dongfeng, but his priority now was to defeat the boss. He understood that the woman's role was just to carry out the plan to lure him in. Wasting no time, Shadow decided to go straight for the boss. The woman tried to warn him, saying he was heading to certain death, since Dongfeng's group had more than 18 people waiting for him. Even Shadow, being the most powerful player, would not withstand all of them at once. Meanwhile, Shadow prepared for the fight. He used all his available enchantments and launched his most powerful sequence, combining a throat slash and a backstab. This first strike dealt over 50,000 damage, making the boss's health bar drop like water. The woman could not believe that a single attack had taken 2/3 of a gold-rank boss's health. Shadow then pulled back and repositioned himself next to her. He knew his divine strengthening ability had a cooldown of 25 seconds, but thanks to his reduction, it dropped to 14.3 seconds. He concluded he would not be able to kill the boss without using that skill again. It was better to wait for Dongfeng's group to arrive first, kill them, and only then finish the boss. Suddenly, another group appeared in the cave. They were probably allied with Dongfeng and entered ready to kill anyone they found. The only person they saw immediately was the woman. Shadow wondered if she could defend herself until he saw her reveal a gold-ranked shield. He realized it was no surprise she had been part of a team that almost defeated that boss. She really had skills, probably having found some rare chest from an ancient god in other adventures. While the enemies attacked her, Shadow appeared using his Shadow Instant Slash ability, slicing the opponents into several pieces. Next, he cast the Blooming in Death Curse, absorbing all the negotiable lifespan points from the fallen bodies. The woman was completely shocked by the scene, impressed both by how quickly the enemies died and by the dark flowers appearing over the corpses. She was grateful she had not followed Dongfeng's plan to the end, as she would have died like the others. Before leaving, she asked Shadow to add her as a friend in the game. She promised that one day she would give him that man's real address so he could take revenge. She also offered to help him for free whenever he needed any special service. Shadow thought to himself it was no surprise she always got herself into trouble. She was too innocent to survive easily in that cruel world. Then he took advantage of the window of time and unleashed the same devastating combo on the boss. This time, he managed to kill the creature, the so-called level 10, gold-rank Plaguebringer. After defeating it, he gained experience, 7 evolution points, and 55 days of negotiable lifespan. Shadow was pleased to see that the boss yielded more lifespan than killing 10 ordinary people at once. As the woman walked away to leave, he discreetly used his secret ability that no one knew about, the Hand of Greed. Finally, after a long time, he managed to obtain an assassin skill book, something rare and extremely valuable for him. After leaving the cave, Shadow analyzed the new skill he had just learned. It was called the Darkest Moment. This technique made his blade release a burst of black energy, capable of blinding all enemies within a 20-meter radius. The base duration of the effect was 10 seconds, although it could be reduced if the targets had a high spirit attribute. The cooldown, thanks to Shadow's improvements, was 34.3 seconds. He was excited about this achievement. He thought that even without being in stealth mode, he could use this skill to blind the enemy and thus deal double damage as if he were invisible. His stealth level would matter less now, as his damage-dealing efficiency would remain extremely high. Besides the new skill, Shadow also obtained a new weapon, the Plague Blade, classified as Platinum rank. It was an assassin's weapon with 206 power points and 42 agility, increasing weak point damage by 1.3 times. Its unique effect caused Shadow's attacks to carry a deadly toxin that exploded in the enemy's body after 3 seconds, dealing an extra 50% of his attack damage. Shadow reflected that the day had yielded great rewards. His evolution points now totaled 98. He was close to evolving the Greedy Hand skill from epic rank to legendary rank. After leaving the cave, he realized he still needed a bit of experience to level up, so he decided to hunt some smaller monsters that, when they saw him coming, ran away in terror. He even had fun seeing a monster that looked like SpongeBob running away with the others. With his latest kills, Shadow finally leveled up. This evolution allowed him to advance his Shadow class to the first tier of ranking. His attributes received large bonuses. Strength increased from 3 to 9, Constitution also from 3 to 9, Agility went from 8 to 24, and Spirit rose from 5 to 15. With that, Shadow gained the ability to use stealth skills while already stealthed, letting him refresh his invisibility without reappearing. He also gained 2 more levels in stealth, and his damage against unsuspecting enemies, which used to be double, now became triple. He realized he could now remain practically invisible permanently. He thought his class truly deserved the title of the most powerful in the game. As he was reflecting on these changes, a global announcement appeared for all players. It said that 7 people from the city of Shanghai had reached level 10, which would cause the portal to the godforsaken continent to open in 10 minutes. Even Shadow was surprised by the news. He had not expected so many people to reach level 10 so quickly. Checking the world ranking, Shadow recognized several familiar names from his past life. He felt that his influence, selling rare skills and equipment, was finally showing in a concrete way. He hoped the future would take a very different path from what he had experienced in his previous incarnation. Meanwhile, in the real world, the police were organizing a large operation. An entire battalion was mobilized to arrest one person. One of the officers informed the captain that most of the criminals had already been captured, but 3 of them were still inside the game. They were waiting for instructions on how to deal with those players. One of the captains suggested forcing these criminals to log out of the game, since even if they were in safe cities inside godforsaken game, their bodies in the real world were still vulnerable. He argued that with hunger or thirst, they would be forced to log out to eat or drink, and at that moment they could be arrested. Another captain agreed with the strategy. They commented that their success so far was thanks to Shadow. He was the one who had given them all the detailed information about the criminals. He had warned them about the abilities they might use and how the game rules worked, including that some of these techniques could be brought into the real world. Without that support, the officers would have had no way to prepare. However, they all knew that soon more people would reach level 10, which could create complete chaos if not controlled from the start. They acknowledged that they needed to maintain ties with Shadow as he was an extremely powerful and useful player. Later, Shadow logged back into the game. The same woman from before with black hair appeared to talk to him. She said she had not known he was so benevolent, praising the fact that he had defeated several villains. In fact, she admitted she admired him even more for it. Shadow pretended not to understand the reason for so much praise, but she insisted, saying he did not need to be so modest. She had seen the news and knew that the Dajiang Industries, which conspired along with Song Fei, had been completely destroyed. For her, all of that had happened thanks to Shadow and the impact of his actions both inside and outside the game. Shadow reflected that the police probably did not blame or judge him for the killings he had committed because they wanted to maintain an alliance with him in the future. He understood that to them, he was more valuable as an ally than as a target. He asked the woman if she had already managed to discover Dongfeng Xian's location in real life. Since Dongfeng had not appeared in the game since the other day, he told her to inform him as soon as she got any news. For Shadow, nothing else really mattered at that moment. His main task was finally to reach the godforsaken continent. Many people were already using teleport portals to move between cities, but no one yet knew how to access the continent directly. Shadow did. That area, which until then had been considered just a village for beginner players, was actually the direct entrance to the continent. When he used the teleport while stealthed, people were even startled, thinking the portal had simply vanished into thin air without realizing it was him, completely invisible. Only afterward did they understand what had happened. Upon arriving on the other side, Shadow confirmed it was the same continent from his past life. He recognized the ruins of the ancient city of Jiangnan. Players from different cities would arrive in the godforsaken continent at the ruins of their own cities. The geography of that continent was identical to the real world. That was why it had always been shrouded in so much mystery, something most people had not yet realized. As soon as he arrived, he was greeted by a huge creature that attacked him without hesitation. He dodged easily using his high evasion rate, and with a quick, shadowy strike killed the monster. Right after, another of the same species appeared, called an earth-shaking worm. To deal with them, Shadow activated Divine Strengthening and used Instant Slash, killing them all at once. He knew that on the godforsaken continent there was no truly safe zone where monsters would not appear. It was possible to be attacked anywhere, anytime. Even so, there were shelters and refuges considered safe, and he knew the best one was in the north of Jiangnan. In his past life, this place had become the headquarters of the powerful God Slayers Guild. Meanwhile, Wang Meng's group was also arriving on the continent. They were amazed to see that the place was identical to the city of Jiangnan, with the same buildings and streets. Haizi was particularly eager to know where Shadow was, since they had heard he had come here. Yishui tried to calm him down, reminding him that Shadow literally disappeared into thin air. That was when 2 more earth-shaking worms appeared before them. Shu used his buffs on Wang Meng, who managed to hold off both monsters at once, even while taking damage. Yishui provided cover by continuously healing his wounds. The group's archer managed to pin the monsters in place, allowing Haizi to unleash his powerful fire magic, burning and defeating the 2 earth-shaking worms with relative ease. After the fight, Yishui surveyed the area with his owl, discovering that there were still many monsters around, but at least they were all the same species they already knew how to defeat. Even so, they were shocked to realize there was no safe zone in that place, nor any signs of other survivors. Using the owl, Yishui found a clear trail of destruction and dead monster bodies. He concluded that it had probably been Shadow who had passed through there. They then decided to retreat to the area that Shadow had already cleared, knowing it would be safer there. They chose to follow the trail of destruction and the items left behind, certain they would eventually find him. Instead of fighting every monster that appeared, they ran after Shadow, who at that moment was still killing countless earth-shaking worms. He thought that even without using divine strengthening, he could kill many of them without difficulty, realizing how much stronger he was compared to his past life. Moving through the ruins, he finally reached the hideout he had been looking for. Beneath those ancient buildings was a vast underground palace, something that in his previous life had only been discovered long after they arrived on the continent. This place had eventually become the base of the God Slayers Guild. However, before it turned into a safe base, it was a dangerous dungeon that needed to be cleared. In Shadow's past life, it had taken 18 elite players, all at level 15, to clear it, and many of them had died in the process. But this time, Shadow entered alone, without hesitation. The place was known as the Land of Soul Purification. He believed he was enough on his own to handle it. He knew that to claim the territory, he needed to defeat the area's guardian. As soon as he advanced, all the elemental spirits guarding the place charged at him. Each one had a distinct color representing different elements, and all were level 12. To deal with them, Shadow used his new skill, the Darkest Moment, making his blade explode with black energy that blinded all nearby enemies. With them unable to see anything, Shadow quickly killed them, taking advantage of the triple damage he dealt to unsuspecting enemies even without being invisible. The first 15 monsters fell almost instantly. Even so, he knew the place was full of corridors packed with creatures. It would not be an easy task to clear it all. On the other hand, he saw the positive side. The more monsters he killed, the more evolution points he would earn. And now that all the lesser creatures in that area had been defeated, it was clear that the Guardian would finally appear to challenge him. Meanwhile, people from different parts of the world, like the United States, France, and England, began entering the so-called God-forsaken continent. They quickly realized they were moving into that continent and could even recognize parts of their homelands transformed. As soon as they arrived, they ended up facing the first local threats, known as earth-shaking worms, enemies common to all who ventured there. In the ruins of Jiangnan, Wang Meng and his team were trying to catch their breath after long battles. They acknowledged the effort Shadow had made alone to clear that area, and Yu commented that it was no wonder he was the boss, since, even though they considered themselves strong, they were still far from his level. Wang Meng urged caution with words, while Heizi admitted that without the cleanup done by Shadow, they would all probably be dead. Despite the relief, she showed curiosity, wanting to know where they would respawn if they died there. Wang Meng explained that they needed to wait for all team members to reach level 10 before truly exploring the God-forsaken continent. Meanwhile, Yishu was patrolling with her owl. During the inspection, she noticed the monster corpses lying in perfect order, all killed by Shadow. There were many items and gold scattered along the path. Although she seemed eager to collect those treasures, Meng preferred to act cautiously and decided to contact Shadow first to see if he was interested in the dropped items or if they could take them in exchange for negotiable lifespan. At that moment, Shadow was in another part of the palace, fighting elemental spirits. He had already cleared 4 large halls and many smaller rooms, totaling more than 400 defeated enemies. He was only 5 points away from evolving his skill known as the Hand of Greed. During this hunt, Wang Meng contacted him through chat, saying they had found the items he had dropped along the way. Meng asked if they had any value to Shadow and if they could keep them by paying with lifespan. Shadow agreed and even mentioned he had other items to sell. While they were sorting that out, a new creature appeared before him. Shadow immediately recognized it as the Guardian, the Soul Purifier, a level 15 platinum creature. He knew that if he managed to defeat it, he could claim control of that land. But he also remembered well that this was the most powerful monster in the area, not only because of its level, but because of its absurd resilience, with 750,000 health points. He also knew that its lightning attacks were lethal, capable of killing even him if they hit directly. Even aware of the risks, Shadow attacked first, using his instant Shadow Slash and landing a strike with a bonus for attacking from behind. The Guardian retaliated with a rain of thunderbolts. Shadow knew well that with his current defense and resistance, he could not afford to be hit by one of those attacks. Even though he was agile, he understood that the Guardian's accuracy at that level was very high, with at least a 25% chance to hit him, since he could only maintain a 75% dodge chance. Despite this, his 82 agility points allowed him to move at 40 meters per second, roughly equivalent to about 144 km/h. This absurd speed made him capable of dodging all the lightning strikes if he could maintain his focus. In his past life, his old guild, the Godslayers, only survived that boss thanks to tanks and priests who absorbed the attacks. But this time, he was alone and determined not to give the Guardian any chance. Right at the start of the fight, Shadow managed to reduce about a third of the creature's health, dealing approximately 250,000 damage with his combo. However, the Guardian entered its second phase. In this form, it became invulnerable and generated electric orbs throughout the area. To end this phase, all the orbs had to be destroyed. Shadow remembered that in his previous life the group failed at this part, which led to a huge argument, with Xiaoyu quitting the game in anger and vowing never to play again. Only on the second attempt did they manage to defeat the Guardian, that time without her. Now, Shadow was determined not to repeat that mistake. He used poison darts to destroy the orbs from a distance, since destroying each orb inflicted direct damage to the Guardian. Once he eliminated them all, the second phase ended and the third phase began. In this stage, the Guardian activated a continuous area of effect attack. In the past, his old guild was nearly wiped out by this attack, even with equipment specialized for lightning resistance and multiple priests to heal them. This time, Shadow had a different plan. He knew the attack only hit the ground, so he moved to the ceiling. He used his special shield, which completely negated any damage, preparing for a decisive aerial attack. With Divine Empowerment active and the Black Light Shield, he unleashed his maximum level instant slash, decapitating the Guardian. Thus, he killed the Soul Purifier, Fa Yisa Air, a platinum rank enemy. As a reward, he leveled up to 11, gained 4 points in all his attributes, plus 10 bonus attribute points to distribute freely, and 20 evolution points. He also received 10 reputation points for being the first person in the world to defeat a platinum level boss. For him, it was clear that this hideout was not just a shelter but also a valuable storage site. Most importantly, everything stored there could be brought into the real world. In Shadow's past life, when the game Forsaken by God became reality, modern weapons completely lost their usefulness. The wars of the future were fought with equipment and weapons obtained inside the game itself. The way these items crossed dimensions was through special hideouts and shelters. Shadow had fond memories of this base, but he was determined not to follow the same steps as before. He wanted to become the most powerful while the game lasted. Elsewhere, Xiaoyu's group was fighting a massive creature armed with an axe. However, she ended up being sliced in half during the fight and returned to the starter village, losing 2 days of tradable lifespan. Her teammates criticized her, saying it was easy to dodge such a big axe. Meanwhile, one of her friends, distracted by sending a message to Xiaoyu, took a direct axe blow to the head and also died, returning to the starting point. Chuyuan showed concern, asking how long they would have to keep defeating monsters to reach the necessary level. She was afraid because her lifespan was running out. At that moment, a global message was sent to all players, announcing that Shadow was the first in the world to solo a platinum-level boss. The news shocked everyone. Xiaoye, upon hearing this, reflected on the situation, realizing the people around her couldn't even defeat a silver-level boss. She wondered how Shadow could handle a platinum-level one, thinking it seemed easy for him. Meanwhile, Shadow was allocating his new attribute points, putting everything into agility to further increase his speed. He believed that with enough agility, he could defeat bosses without being hit. He hadn't expected a platinum-level boss to grant 20 evolution points, which allowed him to upgrade his Greedy Hand skill from Epic to Legendary. This upgrade boosted his bonus rewards to 500% and gave him a new passive skill called Greedy Space, which added 100 extra inventory slots. When he used his enhanced Greedy Hand, he instantly received 100 evolution points. He also obtained 2 assassin-oriented items and a skill book of the same category. He decided he would analyze these items later, since his priority was to claim the territory and its unique abilities. To speed up the looting, he created a devout follower who went around collecting all the items scattered throughout the palace and brought them to him. Realizing he still had leftover evolution points, Shadow decided to use them to further improve his abilities. He extended the duration of his stealth and increased the bonus damage he dealt when attacking stealthily. His backstab damage bonus rose from 50% to 75%, and his skill Darkest Moment reached epic rank. It now had a range of 50 meters and blinded enemies for 16 seconds. He also upgraded his skill Bloom in Death, which now made the target's body disappear completely and allowed him to absorb 50% of the enemy's non-tradable lifespan. In high-level zones and boss rage areas, the life drain could increase by hundreds or thousands of times, making it essential to secure the non-tradable lifespan first. With this, Shadow knew he would no longer run out of non-tradable lifespan. As he finished these adjustments, he received a message from another player congratulating him on his victory against the first platinum-level boss. She also said she had good news, as she had finally discovered where Dongfang lived. She mentioned that he had bought a large amount of lifespan to trade for abilities in the real world and needed to be stopped before he became a threat. However, Shadow said he would handle it without any worries. With all the items gathered by his servant, he noticed he still had plenty of space in his inventory. Next, he went to meet Wang's group. When he arrived, Enyu tried to hug him but got slapped in the face. Even so, she explained that they had collected around 2,000 days of lifespan and items along the path cleared by Shadow. Shadow also had many items, including platinum level 1s, to sell them, totaling 18,000 days. And Yu seemed excited at the prospect of seeing those new high-level pieces of equipment, while Heizi questioned why Shadow's inventory was so big. He didn't bother explaining since he never revealed his secrets. Still, he offered them a valuable tip about a portal that could teleport them back to the starter village. When Anyu heard this, she commented that only a reincarnator would know such hidden information, and Wang told her not to scare him, even joking that she should try flirting with him, an idea that didn't go over well with the group. After that, Shadow used a large amount of lifespan, totaling 27,000 days, to synchronize his level and class in the real world, ensuring that nearly all his abilities were at their maximum level. He discovered that even his undead servant was practically immortal in reality, making him almost as powerful outside the game as he was inside. Even so, he knew he still needed more lifespan to reach 100% synchronization. Meanwhile, Qinfeng, upon returning to the real world, became worried remembering that Xiaoshu knew where he lived and decided he needed to move as quickly as possible. But before that, he wanted to secure more points and planned to set up a temporary base. Using his greedy hand, he simply absorbed all the furniture in the house into his inventory, finding it very convenient. He then headed to Dongfeng's address, running at his current speed of over 200 kilometers per hour. At that moment, Dongfeng was in a restaurant, attending an important family meeting. He was explaining that because of the so-called game forsaken by God, where certain powers could be brought into the real world, they had a great opportunity to further strengthen the Dongfeng family. He himself had been doing a good job increasing their power, considering it his duty. Dongfeng's grandfather showed pride in his grandson's progress, reminding him that they had invested a lot to increase his purchased lifespan. For them, the goal was simple. Dongfeng needed to reach level 10 in the game to bring those powers into the real world, something that would make the family grow like never before. Despite this, Dongfeng harbored dark thoughts. He believed that the stubborn old man only cared about his own immortality and would soon lose his position. He planned to take his grandfather's place, gain powers in the real world, and force everyone to bow before him. The grandfather wanted to know how the mission to capture Shadow was going. Dongfeng assured him it was nothing to worry about. He had hired a very reliable woman to deal with the enemy. The grandfather emphasized that the important thing was to capture Shadow alive, since he knew many valuable secrets that should serve the Dongfeng family. While they toasted and celebrated the family's future success, Shadow was already on site, acting. He had neutralized the guards at the entrance and reflected on how he hadn't expected the Dongfeng family to be so well armed. He knew the situation was dangerous since he hadn't brought good defensive equipment into the real world. As his dodge wasn't perfect, he risked getting shot. To protect himself, Shadow decided to summon his devout follower, an extremely tough ally capable of absorbing the most lethal attacks to keep Qinfeng Shadow himself from dying. This follower was a silver-rank boss and had impressive durability. As soon as he was summoned, the follower entered the room where all the Dongfeng family members were. The guards reacted immediately, firing non-stop at his head, torso, and legs. Even so, the follower did not fall. He killed the first guard blocking his path and charged straight at the grandfather, the current family leader. The old man died instantly while Dongfeng fled in a panic. Dongfeng was thinking he needed to stay alive to keep playing. Reaching level 10 was his only hope of bringing abilities into the real world and surviving. But he didn't have time for anything. In the blink of an eye, he saw Shadow in front of him. The next second, his vision turned upside down because his head had been severed. Still in stealth mode, Shadow used his skill called Bloom in Death. He absorbed a total of 27,000 days of tradable lifespan from the victims. For him, it had been an excellent harvest. He knew that in moments like that, his ability became even more valuable, since it not only erased all traces of the bodies, but also absorbed all the lifespan, even from those who had never played. With this, Shadow's non-tradable lifespan reached 2,300 years. He believed that later, in the violent zone of the Forsaken Continent, he wouldn't even feel anything anymore. Meanwhile, the police arrived quickly, drawn by the gunfire, but when they inspected the VIP room, they found nothing, no bodies, no evidence. They then began searching the other rooms. During that time, Shadow used his invisibility to escape without being seen. Shadow's next target was the Qian group. Their main base had moved to the United States after the game started. However, Shishi was still stuck in China, and he planned to eliminate her before she could escape the country. He estimated that if he searched the entire city for her, it would take 2 to 3 hours, which he considered a waste of time. So he decided to check into a hotel and logged back into the game. Upon logging in, he remembered he still had some silver and gold rank ruins to explore to get more resources. But he received a message from Anu with great news. The group had found the entrance to a gold-ranked tomb. However, they hadn't been able to defeat the Guardian. Shadow wanted to know exactly where this tomb was, and Yu explained that on the way back to the teleport leading to the main village, they had to make a detour to avoid monsters. During that detour, they noticed that Heizi had disappeared. She had fallen into a hole that was actually the entrance to the tomb. The group had gone in but had to flee in terror. Now they were all back at the main starter village, and Anu promised to send Shadow the coordinates. He thought that Heizi was really lucky to stumble on hidden places like that by accident. He also recognized that Anu was very smart and agreed with her to sell any rare item she could get. When he reached the entrance of the tomb, Shadow noticed it looked like a strange well in the middle of the city, something very suspicious. When he went in, the game system notified him he was in the Tomb of Resentment. Inside, all long-distance communications were blocked. He soon encountered an enemy, an undead butcher, a vengeful gold-tier level 12 ghost. Shadow analyzed the creature and realized he had never seen it before, neither in this life nor the last. He saw that it was a ghost that attacked from range with very heavy, high-damage physical strikes, which explained why Yu and the others had fled so quickly. Their equipment wouldn't withstand even a single hit, but Shadow knew that if he could land one precise attack, he could kill the monster. So he used his instant Shadow Slash skill, slicing the enemy into pieces and securing victory. Even after using instant Shadow Slash, Shadow still had to activate another skill to finish off the boss. The initial blow had taken 80% of the monster's health, which was a lot but not enough to kill it outright, so he used the throat cutter skill to finish it. However, something unexpected happened. As soon as the boss's body died, its limbs exploded in flesh and blood all around. It was a skill called Corpse Explosion. Thanks to his quick reflexes, Shadow managed to dodge in time. He remembered that in his past life he had faced a similar boss with his old guild team. Back then, when the monster died, everyone rushed in for the loot without realizing the danger, and many teammates ended up dying in that same explosion. He never imagined he'd find this type of enemy inside a tomb. After making sure he was safe, Shadow used his greedy hand skill to collect the rewards. He gained 11 hen days of tradable lifespan, 20 evolution points, a skill book called the Blade of the Dark Knight Ring, an additional 630 days of lifespan, and even a platinum level armor. Shadow was pleased with the result. He had finally gotten such a rare piece of equipment and a skill he could really use in combat. The new skill was geared toward assassins and allowed him to code a sharp weapon with dark power, striking all enemies within a 5-meter range and adding 500 extra dark element damage. Thanks to the item that reduced cooldown time, he could use it again in just 5.7 seconds. Shadow realized this was great for him, since the skill's magic damage was boosted by the spirit attribute, which he had more of than strength. He then invested several points to level this skill up to epic. With that, its range increased from 5 to 12 meters, and its extra damage went from 500 to 1300. Even though it was an area attack that dealt less damage per target than a single strike, it was perfect for wiping out multiple enemies at once, especially if he was surrounded. He also tested his new armor, called Resentment Armor, Platinum level. It provided 55 additional points of physical defense, 45 elemental resistance, 42 damage block, and 777 extra health points. In addition, it had a passive skill. Whenever Shadow took damage, his power would increase by 30 points. Although it wasn't the ideal effect for him since he usually avoided getting hit, he considered it better than nothing. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Xiaoyu was being killed once again by a creature that wasn't even that strong. One member of the group was completely furious, criticizing her for having a pretty body but, according to him, not using her brain. He reminded her that she was a priestess who didn't even know how to heal properly. This player, with only 2 years of lifespan left, lost his patience. He pushed her to the ground, telling her never to show her face to him again. Chu Yuan tried to help, inviting Xiaoye to come with her to the city where her parents lived. There was a place there specializing in helping people who had trouble advancing in the game. But Xiaoye was crying heavily and chose to log out without saying anything. In the real world, in her new apartment, bought with the lifespan she had sold, Xiaoye received a message offering help to level up. But the man who sent the message had ulterior motives and made it clear he wanted something in return. She then tried talking to another player, but he also refused, saying he wanted nothing to do with it and even told her to go get a job. Desperate, Xiaoyu felt completely alone. She began to break down, complaining that no one wanted to help her, that Songfei was dead, and that she couldn't contact Shadow to get her revenge. She then thought she needed to find her brother. She believed he would never abandon her. She went to his old apartment, believing that if she apologized sweetly, he would forgive her. She planned to act obedient for now until she got enough power to take revenge. She dreamed of the day when she would have the money and strength to cut all ties, including with Qin Feng. When she arrived, she knocked several times with no answer. She ended up kicking the door down, but found the place completely empty. There was no furniture or sign that anyone lived there. When she tried calling him, she found that the number was unavailable. Meanwhile, deep inside the Tomb of Resentment, Shadow kept advancing. He had already eliminated around 200 smaller monsters along the way and was finally nearing the end of that place, ready to face whatever came next. Some enemies in that tomb were silver rank, while others were bronze rank. Shadow was already close to level 12 and was eagerly waiting for the moment his summon would open the coffin, hoping the final boss of the tomb would be platinum level. When the devotee opened the coffin, a dark energy spread and engulfed him instantly, killing him immediately. Shadow quickly realized it was the Death Miasma, a gold-tier boss, completely immune to physical attacks and without a solid form. He remembered the last time he had released that creature. Back then, the monster had managed to escape, invaded a guild base, and killed many people. That is why he knew it was essential to exorcise this threat immediately. Fortunately, Shadow had a magical attack capable of revealing the creature's true form. Using the Ring of Shadow's strike, he exposed the real body of the Death Miasma, which turned out to be just a small root spreading the deadly mist. Once it was exposed, he easily destroyed it with a single blow. He understood that even though it was officially a gold-level boss, the power of the Death Miasma could surpass platinum level for anyone without the right method to fight it. The victory was only possible thanks to the ring's magical ability. After defeating the boss, Shadow used the greedy hand to collect a rare item, a Mount Bell, and reflected that being with Heizi always brought him luck. With that bell, he could summon a level 11 ghost wolf to serve as a mount and combat companion. The wolf was huge and had an impressive ghostly appearance. Its stats were high, with 408 strength, 55 constitution, 91 agility, and 35 spirit. It also had several special abilities. There was the active fast movement, which increased movement speed by 245% while Shadow was mounted. There was also the Night Wanderer, which granted a permanent level of stealth at night. This stealth would break upon attacking, dealing 120 additional damage, and could only be reactivated after 60 seconds. Another ability was the triple attack, capable of hitting a single target 3 times in a row with extra damage. Finally, the wolf had the Wolf Howl, which granted all allies an additional 35 points in attack, physical defense, and elemental resistance for about 5 hours. This skill had a cooldown of 10 minutes, but if recharged while active, it could be maintained continuously. Shadow recognized that these advantages made him incredibly powerful in a short time. After securing the mount, he left the tomb testing the wolf's speed and was very impressed with its performance. Shadow decided that his next goal would be to reach level 15, as he needed enough lifespan to take the mount into the real world. He planned that once back in reality, he would eliminate Shishi, someone whose name he even found too ridiculous to take seriously. He knew the Jianghai arena was huge, with 2 underground levels and a vast complex full of monsters, which he saw as an advantage since it would allow him to level up quickly. As soon as he arrived at the arena, he encountered giant gladiators and advanced without hesitation, eliminating them all with his instant slash technique, always accompanied by the wolf. Meanwhile, Wang Meng's group was exploring the god-abandoned continent, defeating various creatures. One of the group members, Nai Liang, the son of a company director in Jianghai, was very impressed with Anyu's power. He thought her hidden class, the Dragon Swordsman, was extremely strong and had a personal interest in her. However, Anyu was not satisfied with the group's performance. She remarked that she had not used all her strength, since the boss they faced was gold-ranked and level 8, and even so, they took more than 10 minutes to defeat it. She could not understand how Shadow had killed a platinum-level boss alone. Liang believed that Shadow was just a sneaky assassin who slowly destroyed bosses in a dishonorable way, something he claimed he would never do since he considered himself honest. He also said that Shadow had a reputation as a bloodthirsty psychopath who should be controlled. On the other hand, Heizi and Meng laughed at those criticisms and said he was the most powerful player on the server, responsible for single-handedly defeating the first platinum boss. They even joked that it was cute that Nai Liang wanted to insult him only to join him later. The conversation went on until Wang Meng changed the subject, showing he had other concerns in mind. Wang Meng commented that maybe it was just paranoia, but mentioned that there was an incident at a restaurant where an entire family disappeared mysteriously. He said many believed it had been Shadow's doing, so he thought the group should be cautious about trusting him. Even so, he admitted that no one there really knew Shadow's personality and did not rule out the possibility that he was truly a serial killer. And Yu replied that many people suspected Shadow, but there was no proof against him. Even so, she told herself that even if it were true, she would still choose to stand by him. Wang Meng wanted to know the exact reason for that, and Yu simply dodged the question, telling them not to try to suck up to Shadow since that was what everyone seemed to want. At that moment, another group member appeared saying he had found a gladiator-style arena nearby. However, all the monsters were already dead, and Yu decided they should check it out. When they got there, they found many days of lifespan scattered around and various items on the ground. She commented that it was certainly Shadow's work. Nai Liang questioned why she was so sure, and Yu replied that it was obvious since he was the most powerful of all the players. If anyone could do something like that alone, it would only be him. Nai Liang argued that he could do it too. With stealth, it would just take him longer. While the group was talking, and Yu took the chance to send messages to Shadow, trying to sound affectionate and asking if he was still around. He gave the clearest answer possible when he suddenly appeared behind Nai Liang, mounted on his wolf. Nai Liang was so terrified that he wet himself, something visible to everyone, causing general embarrassment. And Yu was fascinated by the wolf and asked where Shadow had gotten that creature. He explained that it was thanks to the coordinates the group had given him, which allowed him to find it in the tomb. He made sure to thank Haizi especially, saying he was his lucky charm. Next, Shadow began trading with the others for the items and days of life each one wanted. Na Liang, humiliated by the situation, was furious and promised himself he would get revenge on him someday. Meanwhile, the system showed that Shadow had accumulated an impressive 245 years of lifespan and 255 evolution points. From that last arena clear, he also obtained a new gold tier skill called Silent Stealth. With it, he could remain permanently invisible as long as he didn't move, gaining over 300 extra damage when exiting stealth. The cooldown time was 120 seconds. He spent 11 of his evolution points to upgrade this gold skill to Epic, increasing the additional damage to 800 and reducing the cooldown to 60 seconds. He also upgraded other skills and was eager to test the necklace he had obtained in the arena. It was the Liar's Pendant, a platinum tier accessory for assassins that granted plus 45 physical attack, plus 20 strength, plus 20 constitution, and a unique effect that increased stealth by 1 level. He had also obtained the Veil of Darkness, another accessory for assassins, which gave plus 5 constitution, plus 5 spirit, and increased his dodge chance by 32%. With this gear combined, Shadow now had an 83% total dodge chance. Suddenly, in the distance, he spotted something that put him on alert. It was an Iron Maiden. He wondered who could have been crazy enough to start a fight with that boss. In his past life, that creature had appeared in the ruins of Zhanghai, and over 1,000 people had taken part in the hunt against it. Over repeated attempts, with players dying and returning, the total death count surpassed 4,000. Seeing the Iron Maiden roaming freely was worrying, but he knew she also came from a tomb. Back then, she had guarded the Holy Church, one of Zhanghai's largest ruins. Originally, Shadow had planned to deal with Shishi first, but seeing this unexpected opportunity, he decided she could wait. As he got closer to the Iron Maiden, he could clearly see her massacring a large number of players at once, confirming the immense danger she posed. The Iron Maiden's attacks were wide and hit many players at once, killing anyone nearby. Shadow watched from a distance and wondered why those players insisted on fighting her now. To him, they were being arrogant and underestimating the danger. While assessing the scene, Shadow recognized who the players were. Among them, mounted on a tiger, was Chen Wuming, whose hidden class was the Templar Knight. Chen Wuming was an old acquaintance of Shadow from his past life. They had fought each other but without a decisive result, since Chen Wuming always resorted to dirty tricks to escape when he was about to lose. In Shadow's previous life, the Iron Maiden had been defeated by Wuming's guild, the so-called Knight's Sanctuary. That victory was one of the reasons people said the West belonged to the Blade God and the East to the Knight's Sanctuary, as they were the strongest guilds at the time. But Shadow knew the Sanctuary used cruel methods. Their recruits were forced to sign contracts similar to slavery, offering safety in exchange for 50% of their lifespan. Many members were, in practice, slaves sold on the black market. For Shadow, that moment was perfect. He decided that this time, Omim would not escape. Invisible, he approached the chaos of the fight against the Iron Maiden and used the Ring of Shadows, killing all the players around at once. The group was confused, not understanding what had happened, since it wasn't the creature that killed them. Omim tried to figure out if it had been Shadow, saying there wasn't even a grudge between them. But Shadow didn't care about explanations or justifications. He simply eliminated him with his instant Shadow Slash, spreading destruction around and ensuring everyone died. Naturally, they they all returned to the game's respawn point. Among the dead was also Xiaoyu, whom Shadow had observed before. It seemed that every group she joined ended in tragedy. She herself wondered why Shadow insisted so much on hunting her down, since her lifespan was at the limit. Shadow realized that by defeating her, he gained 4 days of tradable lifespan and 1 year of non-tradable lifespan from her. To him, it showed she had really hit rock bottom. He considered it a harsh but necessary lesson. After that, he turned his attention to the Iron Maiden, who tried to strike him directly. He dodged easily, remembering that the first phase of that boss wasn't so difficult. When he disappeared from her view, the creature went into a frenzy, spinning her blades in all directions, trying to hit him any way she could. Shadow was ready, staying above her and delivering precise aerial attacks. Using his combo combined with the plague poison on his new dagger, he dealt a lot of damage. It was then that Shadow realized the Iron Maiden had entered her second phase. Now, instead of spinning blades, shadowy hands extended to grab any living thing and drain all its life force. Besides that, he knew that in this form the creature returned part of all the damage it received, making it even more dangerous. There were rumors that there was a hidden portal in the Iron Maiden's stomach capable of swallowing players and throwing them randomly anywhere in the world, but Shadow had never been able to confirm that story in his past life. To him, it was probably just some player confusing it with another similar game. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel.